He's in a quiet shop eating a hamburger and a soda after days without a bite. Outside, an apocalypse is raging with zombies roaming the streets. Everything is as usual, but something strange is happening. The zombies don't even notice him. It's as if he doesn't exist to them. At first, he's happy to eat after days of hunger, but then he notices something isn't right. Why are they ignoring him? And why does he feel stronger? To understand what's happening, let's go back to the beginning of this mess. This story begins in a dark operating room, where two suspicious surgeons are experimenting on two living people who look very injured. The surgeons inject both subjects with a strange green liquid. Soon, the male subject begins to bleed from every orifice. What the surgeons injected into the man turns out to be too much to handle, and apparently both subjects die right there. One surgeon finally decides to abandon his research, noticing that after sacrificing so many people, only failure after failure awaited them. He knew from the beginning that this research had no real future. Before leaving, he makes it very clear that he will no longer be a part of it. Dr. Shin seems to be the only person who doesn't believe their efforts have been in vain. As far as he's concerned, the people they used for the tests were always going to die in a day or two, so it doesn't matter if they ended up dying a day earlier, since they contributed to the greater good of humanity. Then, Shin tells his assistant to get out of the operating room. As he plans to take care of the bodies himself, the assistant says no more and leaves in silence. Meanwhile, Shin remains obsessed with the belief that this research will succeed. He's sure that the only thing holding him back is the lack of suitable test subjects. He knows without a shadow of a doubt that the right subject for this experiment is still out there. Now let's move on to the main protagonist of this story. His name is Kang Iwan, and his friend is Jin Min Hung. These two work at a funeral home handling bodies. After fooling around and eating, they decide to go to the hospital to claim the bodies. Upon arriving at the hospital, Iwan shows his card to the front desk assistant and introduces himself as Kang Iwan from funeral services. He received a call about patients who passed away early that morning. His friend Hung also joins him after stepping away for a moment to go to the bathroom. Soon, they find themselves in the operating room. The bodies they have to claim are the same ones the surgeons were using for their experiments. Hung confirms that the victims appear to be a father and his daughter. The report says they died in a car accident. But something doesn't make sense to Iwan. Although the father's body is in bad shape, the little girl's is almost pristine. Other than a wound on her arm, there are no signs of surgery. His friend reminds him that they aren't forensic examiners, so they should stop worrying about things that aren't their business and focus on claiming the bodies. Iwan decides to look inside the girl's mouth. As he does, he cuts his finger on her broken tooth. The next step is to move the bodies. Upon moving the father's body first, Iwan notices that the wound on the girl's hand is gone. Of course, this shocks him like nothing else. He points out the healed wound to his friend. But before they can discuss it further, Iwan is hit by a piercing pain that makes him collapse. His friend gets worried and rushes to support him. Meanwhile, Iwan's condition worsens. Suddenly, an immense and unbearable pain hits him, making him scream at the top of his lungs. It seems an infection has entered his bloodstream from the cut on the girl's broken tooth. He feels like his heart is going to explode, and his whole body is so hot it feels like he's being burned alive. He feels like he'll die if the pain continues. He finally passes out, leaving his friend crying like a baby. Meanwhile, the girl begins to convulse and move. A little while later, Iwan opens his eyes. He doesn't know what's happening. He sees the girl he thought was dead banging her head against the door. Iwan is terrified to see the dead girl standing, as if that weren't gruesome enough already. He sees his friend's mangled and bloody body on the floor. Iwan backs away in fear, panic taking over his heart and mind. For some reason, his hands are also covered in blood. Then he notices the girl is looking at him, and their eyes meet for a moment, but she just turns and continues her unsettling head-banging motion. After looking at his friend's lifeless body, Iwan looks back at his blood-stained hands. The sweet aroma of blood filling the room is strangely tempting. The overwhelming stench of blood fills his nostrils, spreading across his tongue. The scene before him feels twisted and surreal. Suddenly, Iwan notices that his supposedly dead friend is groaning. Seeing this, he makes a desperate effort to wake him up. But there's no response. His friend seems to be deeply unconscious. Iwan decides to carry him, thinking he might survive if he receives the necessary treatment. It seems the entire hospital is destroyed. There's blood everywhere and no one in sight. Only an old man is crying in the corner while a girl lies dead nearby. The old man's face is glistening with sweat from the tension consuming his mind. He's certain that no one will come to save them, which means the world outside this hospital is beyond saving. He curses whoever caused this madness. Suddenly, he sees the secretary trembling, so he runs out of the room, certain that if he stays, he'll die a terrible death. With a golf club, he musters his courage and leaves the hospital for good. We return to the operating room. Yi-won has placed his friend on a gurney and is ready to take him for treatment. But Yi-won feels weak and sluggish. His stomach aches as if his insides are twisting. The pain resembles the feeling of hunger, but this makes no sense. He had literally eaten before coming to the hospital. So, it hasn't been long since his last meal. However, we all know the hunger he's feeling isn't for food. It's probably for blood. Nevertheless, he gathers his courage and pushes his friend's gurney. As he opens the door and goes out, he sees the frightened old man with a golf club. The old man is a blessing for Yi-won. He shouts for the doctor's help for his injured friend. Just then, the zombie girl who was banging her head rushes past Yi-won and runs towards the old man like a hungry monster. As the old man backs away in fear, more zombies emerge from another room, and they begin to devour him. Yi-won can only tremble as he witnesses this horrific scene. His friend, whom he was trying to rescue, gets up on his own and walks towards the zombies devouring the old man. Upon arriving, he sits down and sinks his teeth into the old man's head, joining the macabre feast. Yi-won wastes no time and hides behind the wall. He thinks about how his friend, once so goofy, is now a brainless zombie. For a moment, Yi-won thinks he must be dreaming, because this can't be real. He closes his eyes and concentrates, trying to wake up from this nightmare. But he can't, because it's not a dream. Then he realizes it's April 29th, although it should be the 24th. If he understands correctly, he was unconscious for 5 days. He quickly checks his phone and confirms that it is indeed April 29th. His phone is full of missed calls and unread text messages from his sister, Nuna. In the messages, she expresses her concern for his well-being and pleads with him not to go outside, begging him to stay alive. Soon, his phone runs out of battery. Although Yi-won doesn't understand what's happening, that's no excuse not to act. If he wants to save Nuna and Min, he must get out of the hospital at all costs. In a convenience store, we see a girl crying in a quiet corner. The area outside is crawling with bloodthirsty zombies, so she can only pray for a savior. We go back to Yi-won, who is running through the hospital hallway and down the stairs. As he descends, he locks eyes with that head-banging zombie girl, but he finally makes it down and out of the hospital building. He's exhausted, and the hunger is finally overwhelming him. Even though he doesn't have time to stop and eat, he can't help it. Because after being unconscious for several days, it's natural to be hungry. He's so hungry he could pass out. So, he decides to look for food first. As he scans the area, he spots a convenience store and, without a second thought, enters the empty shop. He starts devouring burgers and sodas as if there's no tomorrow. After eating, he finally feels full. But then he notices something strange about himself. It's weird that he didn't even consider if the food he was eating had gone bad. Besides, he normally hated convenience store food, so it's strange for him to be eating it. His eyes fill with tears as he remembers his friend, now turned into a real zombie. He remembers how his friend was always curious about the existence of zombies, but now the poor guy is one of them. As Yi-won is drowning in sorrow over the loss of his friend, he suddenly notices a commotion from a nearby storage room. He cautiously approaches the room and carefully enters. Inside, he sees the same girl from before. She screams loudly, thinking a zombie is approaching her. Terrified by fear and panic, she dares to glance back, and she sees Yi-won trying to force a smile as he offers her his help. Meanwhile, a zombie outside is slowly approaching the store. Inside, Yi-won gathers some food and gives it to the hungry girl, who devours the food as if there's no tomorrow. Seeing how fast she's eating, Yi-won suggests she slow down, warning her that it might give her a stomachache. The girl finally feels satisfied after eating and drinking some water. She thanks him and says she feels much better. Out of sheer curiosity, she asks how he managed to get in, which takes him by surprise. He says he was so hungry that he thought he needed to eat something, so he just rushed into the store. His explanation doesn't seem very convincing, especially considering how the place outside is crawling with mindless zombies. Suddenly, Yi-won asks if he can charge his phone. She reminds him that there are power banks in the store. Yi-won decides to look for them and is about to go when the girl pleads with him not to open the door because there are zombies outside. But Yi-won reassures her, saying there were no zombies when he came in. But as if summoned by fate, a zombie appears outside as soon as our guy opens the door, and upon seeing the human girl, the zombie goes berserk and lunges toward her rapidly. But Yi-won, standing between them, shoves the monster. He unintentionally pushes it so hard that the zombie goes flying like a light garbage bag and skids across the floor. What Yi-won thought was a simple push was a deadly counterattack. The girl behind him is stunned by such power, while Yi-won is just as bewildered, not knowing where so much strength came from. The zombie that took the hit is out for the count. As the scene unfolds, we realize just how powerful and disastrous that push was. The zombie crashed through a glass window and was thrown about 15 feet. Yihuan says he pushed the zombie with all his might, but he didn't expect to knock it out like that. That's when he notices something peculiar. The entire time he's been running, not a single zombie has tried to attack him. The girl then asks him the secret to his great strength. Curiously, she calls him ajushi, a Korean term for middle-aged men, which Yihuan doesn't like. He doesn't want to be seen as some unpleasant middle-aged guy. Anyway, he remembers he was supposed to get a power bank, so he heads to the general goods section. Afterward, upon charging his phone, he calls his sister, Nuna, but there's no answer from her, filling him with immense dread. He doesn't want to consider the possibility that it might be too late to save her now. The image of his Nuna flashes through his mind, and he feels tears start to well up, but he suddenly shakes off those dark thoughts, since he can't be sure of anything yet. Maybe her phone just ran out of battery, and she's hiding somewhere waiting for help. So once again, he musters his courage and decides to go out and find her. Before leaving, he needs to sort something out with the girl in the store. He asks if she has a phone. She says yes, but it's dead. Yihuan gives her a power bank and suggests she call her parents. Shortly after, she gets through to her mother, and tears fill her eyes as she speaks. She quickly reassures her mother about her well-being and current location. Her mother, relieved, is happy to hear she's okay. The daughter also assures her that her safety is thanks to the efforts of this ajushi who helped her. Yihuan feels annoyed at being called an unpleasant middle-aged man. He's only 28 years old, and it feels unfair. Suddenly, the girl's mother warns her not to come home and hangs up, leaving her daughter worried and in tears. After the call, the girl continues to cry and sob uncontrollably. Seeing how desperate and helpless she is, Yihuan decides to help her, suggesting she come with him, and he'll take her home. Suddenly, his attention is drawn to the commotion outside. It seems more zombies have gathered at the store. Seeing this, the girl cowers even more. Realizing they can't escape, Yihuan recognizes they won't be able to leave unless he deals with the threat outside. He rummages through the store's supplies and creates a temporary weapon to defend himself and attack. Before leaving the storeroom, he sternly instructs her not to open the door under any circumstances and assures her he'll be back soon. With that, he heads outside, leaving the girl pleading with him not to go. But he closes the door in her face and goes to confront the zombies outside. After clearing out the threat, Yihuan returns and assures her that everything is under control. Seeing him standing there confidently makes the girl's face light up with awe. To make sure, she asks if he's okay. He says he is. Although he wasn't sure before, after fighting those zombies, he's quite certain he's in good shape. Most importantly, he notes that the zombies don't seem to be attacking him to devour him. Later, Yihuan enters a clothing store and picks out some clothes for himself. After changing into clean clothes, he comes out of the store as if luck is on his side. He spots a heavy motorcycle parked on the other side of the road. The bike seems to be looking at him, as if inviting Yihuan to ride it. Later, returning to the store, we find the girl changing into the clothes he brought for her. Yihuan apologizes, saying he doesn't know much about women's clothing, so he picked out what he thought might work. Since there aren't many zombies around, he decides to gather some food supplies before they leave. As they move through the aisles, Yihuan finds a baseball bat and picks it up. The girl worries about how he's risking his life just to protect her. They are literal strangers, and she doesn't understand why he is helping her. She also assumes that since he's an ajusi. First, Yihuan can't help but make a weird face when she calls him Yushi again. He then reassures her, saying she shouldn't feel guilty. It's normal for someone to be in desperate need of help, and he's sure that one day he might need her help too. Since the zombies don't bite him, there's no real threat to him. The moon shines brightly, casting a serene light on the zombies aimlessly wandering below. But their quiet moment is soon interrupted by the roar of a 700cc engine. Behind the handlebars is, of course, Yihuan riding the new machine. Even though he's making quite a bit of noise, the zombies don't react immediately, probably because his presence is overshadowing the girl sitting behind him. With no obstacles in his way, he hopes to get to Nuna soon and rescue her from this mess. We cut to a gas station. Inside a store, a man is hiding from the zombies. The bottle he's holding is his last source of water. He knows that doom will soon follow. He curses his bad luck for being trapped in this already completely looted store. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle catches his attention. This makes him think there are other survivors nearby. The worst part is, the sound gets closer and closer. Finally, the noise stops right outside the store at the gas station. Seeing the biker calmly stop in the middle of the monster-filled area, the man in the store starts to lose his mind. It might not be the best idea, but he decides to take a risk and call out to them. However, his worries are unfounded. because Yiwan is already taking down the mindless zombies one by one. With a single swing, each monster goes down. As Yiwan takes down the zombies, the man in the store can barely believe his eyes. Suddenly, a zombie approaches from behind Yiwan, so the man shouts a warning to him. Yiwan just takes 2 steps back, and the zombie rushes past as if he wasn't even there. The scene leaves the man in the convenience store in disbelief. Meanwhile, as the zombie almost reaches the girl behind the bike, Yiwan swings his bat with such force, the zombie goes flying like a trash bag. With the area completely cleared, Yiwan signals for the girl to stay calm. As for the man in the store, he can only watch Yiwan in astonishment. If his eyes aren't deceiving him, what he saw shows that the zombies weren't even trying to bite Yiwan. Yiwan walks over to the fuel pump to fill up the bike, since it's going to be a long road. But the duo is surprised when the middle-aged man finally emerges from the store, excitement bubbling inside him. He's sure the person in front of him is an exclusive scoop, a term Yiwan doesn't understand drinking water, as if he's never had anything better. The man says he's happy to have quenched his thirst. Curious, Yiwan asks him how long he's been hiding. It's only been 3 days. The man didn't think the convenience store would be so run down and empty. With no resources, he has some hope after meeting his saviors in the apocalypse. To build a rapport, he introduces himself as Kim Gi-do. He's a 32-year-old journalist who no longer cares about his job because his world has been ruined. The girl is Park Jina, a 20-year-old university freshman. Finally, there's our guy Yiwan, who appears to be 28 years old. He's somewhat reluctant to explain that he's an embalmer, or well, he was. Gi-do comments that he doesn't look like one at all, while Gina stares at him for some reason, a detail he questions. In reality, the girl is just surprised that this guy isn't some old boomer. Gi-do finds out how they met. It was just a series of events that brought them together at the convenience store. Yiwan admits it's a bit strange. They hadn't even exchanged names until now. Gi-do understands that they both went through a real horror. Being trapped here is something he's willing to explore later. For now, he's curious about something that's been bothering him. Gi-do directly asks about Yiwan's strange ability that makes him immune or invisible to the zombies. Outside, the hordes of the undead are gurgling and looking for fresh blood. Returning to their conversation, Yiwan tells his story of how he was beaten and left unconscious for 5 days inside the morgue. He only found out about the terrible apocalypse after he woke up. What he remembers most is getting sick before he passed out. The journalist is carefully jotting down these details. He confirms Yiwan's story that he escaped the hospital and found Gina shortly after. Gi-do also confirms that Gina was looking for her family. Now it seems that neither of them really knows what happened, which Gi-do sees as a blessing. Gina, distressed, asks why. He explains that the entire planet turned into a zombie world in that time, so they can only imagine the worst. To expand on that, details. The first 2 days were a bloodbath. Normal people quickly turned into flesh-eating zombies, and most died without even knowing what was happening to the world. The truly terrifying part is that they were hunted by their own loved ones, who had no idea what had happened to their dear companions. With the way he describes the details, Gina is here crying her eyes out. The journalist apologizes for being too graphic with his details, and stresses that Gina's family must be okay because of the confirmed phone call. He assures her that they'll meet again, a fact that Gina confirms, though her words are filled with doubt. Yuan decides to interrupt the conversation, intrigued by the journalist's story. Even Gi-do mentions that being a journalist holds little meaning for him right now. He was actually investigating a case to uncover the cause of the apocalypse, and by taking a risk, he ended up stranded. He ran out of gas and got stuck. Intrigued by the truth behind the zombie apocalypse, Yuan asks about his findings. The journalist says it's not that relevant, and focuses on something more urgent. Turning to his left, he's terrified to see a group of zombies pounding on the window. The scene terrifies everyone, especially since they can't get out of the gas station before becoming prey for this crazy horde of zombies. Yuan thinks they should just step on the gas and get the hell out of there before finding out anything else. Since they can't use the motorcycle this time, he asks for the location of Gi-do's car. It's parked on the road just a few minutes away. They'll only be able to reach the car if they can get past those damn creeps first. Armed with a club, Yuan decides to be the hero, saying he'll clear a path while they block the door. The journalist thinks it's a reckless idea, especially since this kid is going to risk his life just to get out. Yuan reassures them that he'll be fine, since he doesn't have to worry about the zombies biting him. Looking at Gina with a kind smile, he promises to take her home. Letting out a sigh, our boy prepares for a 1 versus 50 showdown. Before he goes, Gina musters up the courage to tell him to call her by her first name, since their age difference isn't that big. Hearing that, our boy smiles, says her name as he faces the threat. The funniest part is that Jiddu is acting like a third wheel between a couple having a moment. The ugly creeps outside weren't expecting it, but a human made a heroic entrance to face them. With determination, Yuan says he won't let a single one get inside. The zombie horde shrieks as one human gives them a beatdown. He forcefully turns on one that's passing right by him. And I don't know if Yuan had a personal grudge against this guy or something, but he really just slams him into the wall. He makes an interesting observation here. It's not just the fact that the zombies don't attack him, but it's almost as if they don't recognize his presence at all. While he's figuring out why that is, Yuan doesn't care. For now, he's only concerned with sticking to his goal of stopping them from getting in. Watching the scene from the window, Jiddu is on high alert. He can't believe what he's seeing. He makes the same observation as Yuan, but on top of that, there's the terrifying increase in strength that he's gained out of nowhere. Tossing zombies around is draining his stamina, making him hungry. Even though he ate recently, he feels like he hasn't eaten in days. It's just like before, weakening his body and making him need resources. Smashing zombies left and right, Yuan concludes that he'll feel better after he finishes off the horde and gets something to eat. Meanwhile, the sight of Gina, stricken with an incomprehensible terror, causes Yuan to drop to his knees. This confuses Jiddu and worries Gina, because this guy is basically sitting there breathless amidst the passing undead horde. He doesn't know what just happened, or why he was only thinking about Gina at that moment. And here comes the shocking twist. Yuan feels a strong temptation to eat a human. He's no different from the zombies in that regard, which explains why they don't notice his presence. Gina is extremely worried and wants to help him, but Jiddu wisely tells her that would be reckless. While they're arguing, Yuan gets back on his feet and continues to tear through the undead horde, smashing as many as he possibly can. He ends his rampage by smashing a zombie's face into the ground. Unfortunately, at the end of his fiery assault, he's left panting and terrified. This is bad, and he knows it. Even Jiddu can feel it from a distance. The protagonist, baffled, distressed, and conflicted, tries to reassure himself in his sea of doubts, believing that he's different from the zombies. He's human, right? Or at least, that's what he wants to believe. With his eyes glowing with a red spirit, Yuan declares that he will never stoop so low as to become a monster like them. Well, it's a good thing his temptations are gone. After drinking some water, Yuan chugged a lot. But it makes sense considering how many zombies he took out all by himself. Gina is worried he might be hurt, but he actually didn't suffer any physical damage from the fight. Of course, the journalist thinks that fighting so many of them and actually killing them is no easy feat. Still bothered by the extreme hunger he experienced, Yuan's temptation is replaced by a gut-wrenching pain in his stomach. Deciding to focus on moving forward, Yuan recommends using Giddu's car as their safest escape route. Sure enough, they can find a gas can here and refuel the vehicle. Right. Yuan suggests they move together because going alone is dangerous, which causes them to panic even more. Suddenly, this guy comes screaming for help. Fortunately, he wasn't torn apart by the zombie horde earlier. Yuan notes that this guy seems legit, evident from his cry for help. The thing is, his friend is badly injured and at risk of dying. But this situation is a bit complicated, since you wouldn't always trust someone in the middle of an apocalypse. Yuan weighs his options, while Jiddu suggests they stay sharp because these guys could be dangerous. Gina argues against this idea, believing they should still help those in need. Yuan agrees with her approach, even if it's naive. Jiddu caves and agrees if everyone else is on board. Gina unlocks the door and welcomes these guys, who are very grateful for the opportunity. Unbeknownst to them, these individuals are scumbags and have successfully gotten inside. Gina offers them water to re-energize and asks about their situation. Of course, Jiddu remains skeptical and asks if their friend was bitten by a zombie. The stockier companion gets scared and shows that there are no visible wounds. One of them figures his friend would already be a zombie if that were the case. Still, the journalist remains doubtful and asks about their plan for survival. These guys had nothing to begin with and were basically just looking for help for their friend. Jiddu acts distant, but his attitude makes Gina lose her patience. She believes he should focus on helping these guys in danger, especially since it's because of Yuan that the guy sweating profusely thanks them for their generosity. Jiddu admits that maybe he was too harsh in his approach as Yuan turns to him and asks if the car is an SUV. This means the 5 of them can travel with no problem. Sure, but Yuan has other plans because he wants to look for a motorcycle by himself. He wants to lead the group by scouting out safer places beforehand. It's a good tactic, since they can't stay in one place forever. The journalist agrees, and they decide to get the car soon. Gina promises to look after the injured man while they retrieve the car. Jiddu assures her they'll be back soon, so she shouldn't worry. And just like that, the 2 of them leave. But unbeknownst to them, Those bastards were hatching a plan the whole time. The scene shifts to Yuan and Gidu, arriving at the car's location. They refuel the car, but he wants to know why the journalist is so distrustful of the three new guys. Well, he says, his gut tells him not to trust these strangers, and it's only because of the absolute horror he's lived through in the last few days that has made him wary of others, as he has such a cynical view of people. Yuan is curious and asks why the journalist trusted them in the first place. Well, it's because he was already going crazy from dehydration and needed to find a way to survive. Yuan is also curious about why he called him a scoop when they met. Basically, the journalist just got lucky finding someone immune to the zombie apocalypse. In response, our boy's stomach growls like thunder. This man will probably eat like Goku when this is all over. He blushes, but it's only logical that he's so exhausted after fighting the zombies. Gidu thinks they should look for food after getting the car, but something happens. A strange feeling washes over our protagonist as he turns around. Frozen, he's heard something, and it's not zombies. This time, Yuan is certain he could hear Gina's voice. And now we return to the gas station, where a girl is screaming for them to let her go. Gina has been captured by these scumbags who blackmail her, telling her she'll only attract zombies with her complaints. This makes her freeze up even more as the barrel of a gun is placed against her head. The scumbag who was pretending to be sick reveals his true colors, thrilled to have them right where he wanted. They fell for his dirty trick, and he no longer wants to keep up any disguise. He and his group are planning to shoot Yuan and Gidu the moment they get back. As for her, she'll serve as their perfect hostage for the situation. Gina gets angry and bites his finger, making the clown scream like a little girl. He slaps her and continues to mercilessly pistol whip her. Even though she's unconscious, he's still furious from the pain. Even his friend thinks it's hilarious that this guy got bitten by a human instead of a zombie. Anyway, he's done playing around. He wants the beefier friend to keep watch outside. This pervert is just looking to take advantage of her while she's vulnerable. He plans to take her after killing her friends. This disgusting individual is unbuckling his pants when Yuan appears in a rage, smashing his head and sending him flying. He appeared out of nowhere, and upon seeing Gina's miserable condition, rage is the only thing he can think about. Gidu also arrives, very worried about her state, and tries to help her. He was right not to trust those guys from the beginning. Yuan asks the journalist to take her to the car. Meanwhile, this man wants to leave a pile of bodies behind, so he'll be staying here for a while. The journalist carries her to the car. He's just happy he wasn't attacked by zombies. He turns towards her. Gina is clearly hurt. It was no different from what he suspected when he saw those guys. Gidu thinks this is a good way to teach Gina and Yuan, warning them that they shouldn't trust anyone from the very beginning. Now, she's safe, because even Gidu knows they have a great protector. Speaking of our boy, let's focus on the fight. This guy gives those clowns a death glare. They just hurt his girl. There's no way he's letting this slide. In response, they both pull out their weapons. One holds a baton, and the other a crowbar. They mock our boy for overestimating his abilities. Yuan doesn't say a word and surprisingly drops his metal bat, baffling them both. At first, they think he's chickened out of the fight, but the chubby guy realizes something, and he tells Ji-hoon not to rush in because something is clearly wrong with this guy. Veins are popping out on his face. His angry expression transforms into a sinister madness. His thoughts are a jumbled mess, but the worst part is, he's hungry. He's hungry for real human flesh, and his sanity is on the verge of shattering. Things are about to get ugly. He pounces on the corpse of one of the men after killing him, savoring every bite as he chews on his flesh. Then he goes after the others, hunting down the bastard who hurt Gina and abused her trust. The guy is outside. Terrified upon seeing Yuan's behavior, we get a terrifying shot of our boy staring him down, as if he's about to eat some KFC. The guy brandishes his gun in response, but in the end, Yuan destroys him and consumes his flesh. Then he quickly wipes the blood off. Gidu heard the gunshot and jumped out of the car, startled. To his astonishment, only one man walked out of the gas station alive, and it was Yuan. Worried, he asks if our boy is okay, but in response, he asks about Gina's condition, who seems to be sleeping quite soundly. It's comforting for him to hear that, but Gidu wonders why he changed clothes. Yuan hands him the gun he recovered from the clowns. It's a great thing to have in this damned apocalypse. The journalist is happy. Furthermore, he's willing to trust Gidu's intuition from now on, showing that he adapts to his mistakes. Unlike many protagonists and their naive optimism. Worried, the journalist asks if he's really okay or if something happened. Faking normalcy, Yuan gives him a smile, hiding his feelings of pain as he checks the motorcycle. It's finally time for them to get the hell out of here. Gidu doesn't know what the hell happened inside, but he chooses not to think too much about it. It's time for the group to leave, so they hit the road. During the drive, Gina wakes up, She's surprised to find herself in a car with the journalist. She doesn't know what happened, but Gidu assures her they took care of the manipulators, those who tried to take advantage of her. Iwan is also determined not to leave her alone and plans to be very protective of her. Hearing that, Gina cries, covering her face in tears, which worries Gidu. Thinking she might have gotten hurt, she wonders why those people they tried to help took advantage of them. They had noble intentions, but instead of trying to survive together, those guys sowed despair in her heart, causing her to have trust issues with anyone she meets now, which is not a good feeling. Gidu understands, but he gives her the words she needs to hear. On the bright side, he wants her to put her full trust in Iwan, even if she doesn't trust anyone else, since he's willing to protect her no matter what happens. Allow me to pause for a moment and break down the meaning of the scene where Iwan gives the gun to the journalist. It's actually because he doesn't trust himself and wants Gidu to keep him in check if he loses control. Alright, back to the story. Iwan and his group clear the area inside a building with everyone taken down. Our boy wants to take his friends to the room he saw, but his eyes lock onto a picture frame of a loving family. He almost forgot that these zombies were real people, and he apologizes for killing the father. Anyway, he has secured 2 rooms for his group. There's not much to worry about anymore. He's confused about why the journalist wanted them to stay the night, especially having a vehicle to travel. This is because Gidu wanted them to rest from their exhaustion and traveling by day was safer. On top of that, it is imperative that Gina gets all the rest she needs. Worried, Yihuan asks if she'll be okay. It doesn't look good, because she has suffered a severe mental wound from this experience, which prevents her from trusting anyone else. It's a feeling of hopelessness, and it's sad how some traumatic experiences can change a person's view of the world forever. But the journalist says that Yihuan must play his part well here. Since she no longer trusts anyone, she will only depend on someone like Yihuan, the man who saved and protected her time and time again. Yihuan really doesn't want to take on that role and expresses that it's literally her problem. First day together. But the journalist says they've lived through a lot in one day, which is true. Also, the other reason for finding a place to rest is for Yihuan's sake. As a journalist, he's been wanting to ask him a lot of questions. The first is, why don't the zombies perceive his presence? Of course, our young man doesn't know the answer, but he's convinced they don't identify him. The journalist begins to reflect, searching for an explanation for the cause. It's their first day together, so they don't know much. But Gidu wants him to keep him informed if Yihuan discovers anything new about his condition. The next question is whether our boy has ever dabbled in sports or martial arts before. The question seems strange to Yihuan, who denies such a thing, because that's what really surprised the journalist. His monstrous strength, as he was easily lifting zombies and smashing them against walls and pavements as if they were nothing. The journalist declares that it's almost as if he's not human, a phrase that makes Yihuan cringe. Gidu understands that even Yihuan has no idea about his own condition. To deflect from the serious topic, the journalist apologizes for asking the boy so much right after he saved his life. Besides, Yihuan's search to find his sister is still up in the air. He wants to check his home to see how she is, but since his sister is located in Yang and that place is quite far from here, there's no way of knowing if they can make the trip. Despite the odds and the difficulties that lie ahead, Yihuan wants to do everything possible to help save his sister. The journalist is firmly against the idea because the place is too far away, and there's no need for him to be so reckless. Yihuan doesn't understand why either, but he feels it's the right thing to do, no matter how hard it is. Hearing those words, Gina seems to be awake with her eyes full of tears. Moved by Yihuan's sincerity, Gidu thinks the boy is very kind and understands why Gina trusts him so much. Writing his thoughts down on paper, Gidu wants to close the conversation with one question. He wants to know if Yihuan has noticed any specific patterns about the zombies, any information that could help them in the future. Scratching his head in confusion, Yihuan replies that he doesn't know anything significant. He thinks their senses are still intact, but that theory is also inconsistent because it makes no sense that zombies can differentiate between humans and one of their own. Surprising them with her sudden entrance, Gina drops a bombshell. The zombies are actually attracted to exposed skin. According to the words of her manager, who hid in the warehouse before being attacked, Gidu is worried because she's up early, but Gina sits up after not being able to sleep for a while. Furthermore, she apologizes to our boy for worrying him unnecessarily, assuring him that she's better now. Gidu, curious, asks for more details. Gina says that the zombies are attracted to exposed skin, so she asked for long pants. Back in the store, the worried reporter is even more confused than before, realizing they have a lot to work with here. In any case, it's best they look for gloves to cover more of their skin. Gina ends up finding a working radio nearby. The radio broadcast mentions the 6th day of the virus outbreak. noting how life continues to be threatened by the apocalypse. Gina can't believe the radio is working now. The broadcast is live, reporting on the 5 days of the apocalypse. Yihuan and Gidu are surprised to find the channel still active, which means the station must be safe. But Yihuan thinks they might be trapped in the station. This seems more like a distress signal than an actual broadcast. Gina knows the station is nearby, so Gidu suggests leaving it up to Yihuan for the final decision. After all, he's the only one with the ability to move around inside the station. Still, Yihuan considers finding Gina's parents to be of utmost importance and agrees to reevaluate their options later. Seeing him stand up for her so many times, Gina is relieved that the opposite. The journalist agrees and suggests they all get some rest. In the next scene, we get a dream sequence where our boy is running away from zombies in fear. They slowly close in, and in the end, he can only brace himself for the coming pain. Ji Huang snaps out of it and sees Jin Min's body before his eyes. It's shocking because he shouldn't be alive. It makes him wonder if the zombie apocalypse was a dream all along. But then his life is ruined when a horde of zombies gets a taste of human flesh, giving him more nightmares to think about. Shinman invites his friend to join them for a meal, since he has a taste for human flesh and his face looks like something out of a horror movie. Imagine your best friend covered in blood like that, inviting you to eat human flesh. Scary. Yiwan wakes up, gasping, his eyes filled with horror. Daylight streams in by his bedside, and peace finally settles in. His hands are still trembling from the experience as he gathers his thoughts, reaffirming to himself once more that he will never become a zombie. The scene shifts to another location where a couple is resting in their bed, without any food. Instead of worrying about their health, they're more concerned about their daughter, Gina. They hope that someone trustworthy has rescued her. The mother just wishes to see her daughter again. They accept their fate, as there's nothing they can do. Suddenly, Gina's father is woken up by a sound. He heard a motorcycle, suggesting a survivor. To his surprise, the bike stopped nearby. Zombies are roaming around. This decision seems reckless to Gina's parents, as they're unaware of Yuan's special powers. He has arrived at the exact location Gina described, but there are no signs of human life. He considers neutralizing the horde before continuing his search. Therefore, our young man uses his metal bat to strike one with great force. The scene leaves Gina's parents speechless. They're watching some guy destroy zombies without any trouble. It makes them wonder what kind of person he is. With the path clear, Yiwan observes and understands why Jidu's car can't go this deep into the city without permission. Now he wants to explore the area to investigate further. Yiwan walks toward their house, hopping over the wall. They're afraid to go outside and trust a stranger. Suddenly, Yiwan approaches and asks them to confirm if they are Gina's parents. They both rush to him upon hearing their daughter's name. They're so emotional that they even startle Yuan for a moment. Gina finally gets the chance to embrace her beloved parents. The family is happily reunited. Watching them together, Yuan's face lights up, feeling relieved to have fulfilled his promise. Jidu has to remind them to get inside, as it's still not safe outside. Gina's father takes his hand, sincerely thanking them for looking after his daughter. Of course, the journalist doesn't want to take any credit, and tells them it was all Yuan's doing. They head inside. Finally, Gina's parents explain how they got lucky and managed to create multiple barricades against the zombies to ensure their survival. Trapped inside, their resources dwindled while they were searching for their daughter. Fortunately, they have her back now and are very grateful to the two men who helped her. Jidu mentions that it's all thanks to Yiwan, who has been taking care of absolutely everything. Yiwan realizes they haven't been outside for 6 whole days. The electricity went out, but luckily, the water was running. That's how they survived. However, there was no food, so they were starving at this rate. Yiwan realizes he must act on their situation and remembers a supermarket down the road. The shutters were down, which indicates there are likely plenty of resources inside, making it a good option to stock up and ensure their survival. So he decides to go out. But Gina's father opposes the idea, as he would be risking his life for them. Still, Yiwan thinks they can't live without basic human resources. Besides, they haven't eaten in 2 days, and he can't just ignore them. Jidu agrees, saying they must prioritize survival, since anything could happen with the way things are. Gina's father musters the courage to help our boy, but Yiwan doesn't want to risk it, so he turns him down and tells him to focus on Gina's condition. Hearing that for the first time, Gina's father is left speechless. There's nothing more endearing than a man who worries about his family. Well, Yiwan heads out. Jidu intends to accompany him to manage the food. Following Gina's theory, he has fully prepared himself and wants to help Yiwan, being useful instead of a burden. It's good for the protagonist to have a reliable ally. They say goodbye to the family and leave. Gina's family is worried, but she trusts our boy's survival skills and believes that Yuan will always come back. At the supermarket, The two of them pick the locks and lift the shutter, revealing an untouched stash of valuable items ripe for the taking. It's a miracle to find a supermarket like this in an apocalypse. With so much to use, Ji-hwan and Gi-do are confident. The family can easily live for a few years with all these supplies. They start gathering the necessities, and the scene shifts to the MBS headquarters. Here, a worried man is talking on the phone. Unfortunately, he's stuck handling the daily broadcast and has to follow strict instructions. Suddenly, he hears an unexpected message from the other end, informing him about something important. After ending the call, the man is left questioning the purpose of the broadcasted messages. Among his thoughts, he recalls recently meeting an unknown motorcyclist. Ji-hwan and Gi-do got what they needed. Additionally, they take this opportunity to grab a bunch of medicine from the pharmacy as well. Suddenly, the journalist feels the crushing weight of looting the stores. Still, it's too late to worry about pointless things when the world is destroyed. Since looting the store will take time, Ji-hwan stands guard, especially since the medicines need to be checked carefully before being taken. The MBS headquarters is just opposite, and Ji-hwan watches it. He remembers that the broadcast came from that station, confirming Gina was right about its proximity. Gi-do thinks it's reckless to worry about the broadcast now, as they should first take care of Gina's family and focus on finding his sister. Gi-do tells him to leave it for now and focus on more urgent matters. Though reluctant, Ji-hwan understands he needs to find his sister soon, especially since she isn't replying to his messages. Cutting to Gina's family, they're sharing an excellent meal, revitalizing themselves after being exhausted for 2 days. The family is very grateful for what he's done for them. All of this should last the four of them for at least 6 months. Unfortunately, he won't be staying because he has to find his sister. Gina's family is worried, and her mother asks where his sister is. I made a Five Nights at Freddy's reference. Anyway, the bro's sister lives far away, so it won't be easy. Ji-hwan understands, but he must save the only family he has left. Hearing that, Gina falls silent, understanding his pain. However, he has another request. After saving his sister, our boy wants to bring her back to Gina's family, which makes her uncomfortable. Ji-hwan believes this is the safest place of all, and it's not like his sister has any important connections to worry about in these times. Since the zombies can't bite him, he'll be useful to them. He just wants to make sure Gina is safe, and will do whatever it takes to achieve that. That's why he promises to return with his sister and help them more. Of course, Gina's family can't refuse such a request, but they have one strong objection. Gina's father is here throwing a tantrum because he thinks our boy wants to take his daughter away. Even the mother notices it, but she's more understanding. I can't believe they're thinking about grandchildren when they're in the middle of a damn apocalypse at night. They have to make do with candles. After all, there's no electricity. Ji-hwan finds that Gina's parents are fast asleep. They continue their late-night chat, with Gi-do calculating his ideas. He wonders how much food they'll need to get to Janyang for 2 people, and hearing that, Ji-hwan comments in confusion, especially when the journalist says he's going with our boy to help him. It seems like a foolish idea to leave a safe place like this, but Gi-do understands the risks. It's just that he's always been part of a risky job. He's eager to know more about Ji-hwan, and that's why he's sticking to him like a persistent bug. Bro, he's gonna use him to get famous, but it's funny because who cares about fame in a zombie apocalypse, right? Gi-do reminds Ji-hwan of his words. When Ji-hwan said he would trust the journalist from now on, promising not to be a burden, the journalist assures him they'll be fine. Besides, since he's traveled a lot as a journalist, he knows how to handle safe navigation well, and Ji-hwan agrees, so Gina gives them one last thing for the trip. It's actually the radio she picked up from the building. It's going to be useful for learning about new information in the area. Although Gi-do is a bit skeptical about it, Ji-hwan is surprised when the radio suddenly picks up a new broadcast. The broadcast talks about confirmed reports from multiple witnesses in the area. The center of attention is a man who is immune to the undead, someone known as the Motorcycle Man. As the broadcast sinks in, Gi-do soon realizes the radio is probably talking about our boy. The reporter continues talking about this mysterious motorcycle man first seen in Incheon. Then Bucheon, Gwangyo, and Wagok are mentioned, saying this guy is heading straight for the center of Seoul. He's the man who isn't affected by being attacked by the infected. Perhaps he is the solution to their problems. Clinging to hope in the middle of chaos, the MBS midday radio broadcast begins. Meanwhile, Yu-won, next to Blondie on the couch, looks shocked, as if he didn't expect to hear that. The RJ continues, saying, "There's a man who isn't affected at all if he's attacked by the infected." He didn't believe that news at first, and who would spread this nonsense? He mentions he's received complaints asking him not to give people false hope. However, even though he's trapped in the studio, he carries on just to send a small spark of hope to the listening survivors. They are trapped in an endless cycle of despair and loneliness. He wants them to know that giving up is not an option. He trusts that hope will never die and that salvation will come. MBS Radio Production, Live. I'm Jin Cheol. The trio listening to Jin Cheol is stunned by all this. Meanwhile, Jin Cheol plays a song to lighten the mood, a comforting melody for grieving hearts. The RJ hits play, letting the song flow out to souls trapped in despair, leaning back like a dead weight. The RJ is completely exhausted. Even after preaching hope on the radio, he doesn't seem to believe in it himself. With a troubling reality check, he doesn't know how much longer he can go on with this life. Back at home, the trio sits speechless. No one speaks for minutes. Yu breaks the silence, asking if his name was Son Jin Cheol, the MBS announcer, and Ji-won asks if Gi-do knows him. Gi-do fumbles through his pocket, muttering that he has Jin Cheol's number somewhere. He finally finds it. So he did know the guy from the radio's current affairs department. What's surprising is that he starts thinking Jin Cheol might be running the whole station by himself. Furthermore, Yu-won asks Gi-do if the radio is still taking reports for the broadcast. Gi-do is sure they still are, no doubt. After taking it all in, Yu-won finally speaks up, ready to claim that he's the guy on the motorcycle. This huge confession leaves them completely stunned. He directly admits that the truth is, the zombies don't bite him, but he still has no idea why. Despite everything, Yu-won, with a long face, didn't want to give people false hope. He feels he isn't worthy of this role. However, Gi-do tries to understand his point of view, but suggests the kid be careful about something that could endanger his life, especially when living in a world where trusting someone is a fool's errand. From Gi-do's point of view, if this kid exposes his identity, he's definitely a goner. But Ji-won feels that things like that don't really matter now. With a smile, she says directly that exposing his identity is no big deal, especially in a world like this. Still, he tells them to calm down, swearing that he'll be as careful as possible, so there's nothing to worry about. Sighing loudly, Gi-do gives him the green light, finally letting Yu-won do his thing. Afterward, Gi-do decides to connect Yu-won with that guy from the broadcast. After all, he has some personal connection with the director. Besides, he's sure the director will only buy his story if he vouches for him. Because of this, Yu-won is truly grateful to Gi-do for his unwavering support so far. Calling the MBS announcer, Jin Cheol, Gi-do states that he's Kim Gi-do, and asks if he's in the middle of a broadcast. Jin Cheol can't believe his ears upon hearing the voice of journalist Kim Gi-do. Feeling relieved, he goes ahead and asks if Gi-do is in a safe place. At the moment, Gi-do admits that he is in a safe situation. Putting that aside, he gets straight to the point, confessing that he has information that needs to be reported without wasting any time. Gi-do drops a bombshell, saying the motorcycle guy from the broadcast might be his colleague. As he says that, Gi-do and Ji-won look at each other for a moment, but Jin Cheol practically jumps out of his seat. The guy can't handle this bombshell, asking if he's really telling the truth. Just then, he shudders as this heavy news is unleashed. He trembles like a leaf, struggling to process it all. Snapping out of his amazement, Jin Cheol rushes to the radio system. He apologizes to the audience, stating that he's received an urgent and important tip, so he decides to cut the broadcast short with this one last song. Back on the call, Jin Cheol can only hope that Gi-do's words are true. With reports about the motorcycle guy coming in from time to time, there's a lot of uncertainty. Some are true, others are just rumors. When asked, Gi-do doesn't even hesitate. Is he ready to put his name on the line, like any true journalist would? That takes Jin Cheol by surprise, whose eyes pop out of their sockets in shock, glancing back. Gi-do, fighting through the crowd, calls out the Humpty Dumpty-looking president. Regarding his unfair appointment, Gi-do demands an explanation from the president back in his journalism days. Gi-do, shivering in the cold, waited for an explanation, but he never got one. The opportunity. Now Jin Cheol is ready to hear Gi-do's side of the story, confirming if his colleague is still with him. Gi-do signals for Yi-hwan to join the call, claiming to be the guy on the motorcycle. This voice startles Jin Cheol for a moment. Keeping his cool, he has a list of prepared questions he needs answers to. Meanwhile, people from all over the world are listening in, as RJ Jin Cheol claims that the guy on the motorcycle is incredibly important to his listeners. He knows they've all fallen into an abyss of despair. And for them, just knowing someone is out there is their last hope. Without further ado, Son Jin Cheol asks Yi-hwan if it's true. He admits to being immune to the infected, but the reason why is still a mystery. He also says the infected don't notice him, don't get aggressive, and barely react to his voice, as if he isn't even there. Jin Cheol jots it all down. After a brief pause, Yi-hwan comments that he's still not the hope Jin Cheol is looking for. Yes, he has helped a few people with this ability, but it has its limits. That's it. Jin Cheol decides to only share confirmed information. Even with Gi-do vouching for him, he still asks for proof. He wants them to prove his immunity to the infected. Yi Huan asks Jin Chul if the area around MBC is crawling with the infected. That sends a chill down Jin Chul's spine. Yi Huan confirms that he will go there himself. That night, Jin Chul doubts Yi Huan's claims and asks if he's really coming alone. With determination in his eyes, Yi Huan states that it's the only way for Jin Chul to believe his story. He's willing to take the risk. This scares Jin Chul, but his RJ protocol forbids him from sharing unverified information. So he tells Yi Huan to come by MBC, since it shouldn't matter if the infected really don't pay him any mind. He then reveals his current location inside the MBC station, 8th floor, 2nd studio at the end of the right hallway. Jin Chul warns this person, claiming immunity, that his station is nearly overrun by the infected horde. However, an unfazed Yi Huan still sets their meeting for tomorrow, as if he doesn't have a care in the world. Jin Chul then speaks to Gidu, the reporter, saying that he never imagined he'd hear his voice in times like these. He tells Gidu to take good care of himself, to ease the worried PD's mind. Gidu assured him they would meet soon, and with that, the call ended. Yi Huan flies completely under the radar of the infected. He's completely immune to their chaos, and they won't bite him. All this information is proving difficult for Jin Chul to process. But Jin Chul's mind wanders, questioning if all of this could actually be true. As he lets it all sink in, Jin Chul realizes that Yi Huan isn't just a beacon of hope, he might be salvation itself. The next day, Yi Huan's preparations are complete, and he tells Gidu that it's clear outside, clear as day. There isn't a single zombie near their car. Getting himself ready, Gidu is almost set for the mission. Hina's mother comes down to give Yi Huan some homemade rice balls. She thinks it's going to be a tough journey, so it's good to have something to eat. The guy practically jumps for joy when he spots a pile of rice balls packed in a box for him. After thanking her profusely, he promises to eat every last one. The woman warns Yi Huan to be careful and bring her daughter back safe and sound, because they'll be waiting for them. Just as Yi Huan is leaving, Hina rushes out to call his name. Speechless, she can't look him in the eye. He tells Blondie not to worry, since the zombies wouldn't dare mess with him. However, her emotions get the better of her, and before she knows it, she's hugging Yi Huan tightly, taking him by surprise. But the sweet girl couldn't help but thank Yi Huan for everything, and she needs him to come back, no matter what. Turning red as a tomato, Yi Huan assures her not to worry, as he plans on returning safe and sound. Suddenly, Gidu shivers. Waving off their little moment, he complains that dating is fine, but marriage shouldn't be rushed. Totally disgusted with the old fool, they both make faces at him, showing their annoyance. Afterwards, Yi Huan leaves while the people he's leaving behind pray for his safe return. Hours later, Yi Huan and Gidu arrive in a heavily zombie-infested area, with Gidu safely inside the car. The immune Yi Huan, bat in hand, starts landing some solid hits on those brainless fools. A savage blow catches the attention of other zombies, who can't help but turn to look. After a closer look, Yi Huan speculates that if they don't clear out this crowd, this whole area will be a massive headache. Not only that, he believes it will be much more dangerous to find shelter in this chaos. Gidu understands where he's coming from, and lets Yi Huan handle it. Though Yi Huan sighs, knowing it's no easy task, he has no other choice. He grips his bat. The guy warns the brainless horde that he's coming through, no matter what. Inside, Jin Chul is on the verge of collapsing from extreme weakness. Lying in a corner, he can feel his body losing what little strength it has left. He thinks he's reached his limit. Any longer, and he'll be done with this life. With nothing to eat or drink, his supplies ran out long ago, and he has resigned himself to waiting for death. In his condition, today's broadcast seems impossible. Still, he feels terrible for not leaving a farewell message during yesterday's broadcast. If only he'd known, things would get even worse. Jin Chul had anticipated it would come to this, but he has one final regret. He still wishes he could learn the truth about the man on the motorcycle. Feeling dizzy, as if he's at death's door, Jin Chul regrets that he'll be gone without satisfying his curiosity. Suddenly, Jin Chul's phone rings, snapping him to attention. It's his fellow journalist, Gidu. Wasting no time, he snatches his phone to answer. On the other end, a worried Gidu asks if Jin Chul is still okay. Gidu finally gets an answer when Jin Chul confirms that, for now, he's fine. Sighing in relief, Gidu tells him to just hang on, assuring him that they're not far away. This clue piques his curiosity but also sends a chill down his spine. Breaking out in a sweat, he asks Gidu where exactly he is. Without missing a beat, Gidu calmly tells him they've arrived at the MBS building. At that moment, Jin Chul's soul just about leaves his body. He can't believe what he's hearing. He can't believe those fools actually made it to the MBS building. Still, he warns the idiots that the entrance is swarming with zombies, making it impossible for anyone to get through. To reassure him, Gidu starts a video call with Jin Chul. As the call connects, Jin Chul is left completely stunned as he watches the man on the motorcycle clear a path through the zombies. He sees the infected being sent flying and crushed by a bat, carving a direct path to the entrance. That man is a one-man wrecking crew. Gidu explains that if he himself stepped out there, he'd be dead in a second. But when it comes to Yi Huan, that guy is just built different. Jin Chul witnesses firsthand that the man on the motorcycle was true to his word. He's watching the first person who doesn't seem to be on the zombies menu. The fact that he hasn't been bitten by a single one of those brainless rotters makes him a symbol of hope. After wiping them out, Yi Huan's mind is lost in endless thought. His head is filled with the trauma of having to slaughter so many people. After a moment's pause, he gives Gidu the green light, telling him it's safe to come out now. Gidu steps out, seeing that it's all real, and taking the man at his word. He remarks that the station would still be a complete hellscape if Yi Huan hadn't shown up to clear it out. Only he was able to get into the MBS building. Just then, Yi Huan spots a police riot shield on the ground. Useless, he mutters, then hands the riot shield to Gidu. This will definitely be useful. Gidu clearly feels the same way. As they move forward, Yi Huan is certain they'll run into many more of the infected inside. So, he offers a piece of advice. Gidu's best chance of survival is to stick close to him. If he does that, he'll have no problem living to see another day. Gidu points out that while the MBS building is a maze to outsiders, he knows the layout of the radio station like the back of his hand. He offers to be their guide on this mission, and with that, the two brave fools head deeper inside. The building is mostly empty. As the two of them patrol, Yi Huan, baseball bat at the ready, checks another room, but it's clear of both survivors and zombies. That surprises Gidu, but he can't shake the feeling that something is wrong. As they head upstairs, an unsettling feeling bubbles up in Gidu's chest, forcing him to glance around every couple of seconds. He mutters that the silence is unnerving, then asks Yi Huan if he thinks everyone evacuated when the outbreak happened. At first, Yi Huan's mind races, trying to come up with an explanation. But instead of answering, he asks a question of his own. Without missing a beat, he asks Gidu why Jin Chul is so determined to keep broadcasting, noting that it must be incredibly difficult in his situation. But still, why keep at it? Gidu figures it must be his sense of responsibility as a reporter. After so many years at the broadcast station, Jin Chul has always made it his mission to deliver information of all kinds. Even in times like these, Gidu believes Jin Chul wants to keep doing what he can, seeing it as his duty to humanity. Yi Huan remarks that their dedication as journalists is impressive, which catches Gidu by surprise. As journalists, they hadn't lost their sense of duty, and continued to gather information to understand and find a way to resolve the situation. What's more, Yi Huan feels there isn't much he can do as a mortician, which makes him feel pathetic. Just then, Gidu smacks him with the shield, almost knocking his eyeballs out. He asks Gidu what that was for, but Gidu says the hit was for Gina. He thinks Gina would have done the same thing if she saw Yi Huan's pathetic side resurfacing. Gidu then poses a question to Yi Huan. Who in this world can just live comfortably without a care? Cutting to the chase, Gidu rightly states that Yi Huan has a million chances to find a way out and could choose to do anything he wants. And yet, without a second thought, he chose to rescue Gina and her family. Gidu points out that now, Yi Huan is also trying his best to save Gina and Jin Chul. That's something only Yi Huan can do. But the real reason is different. Still, Gidu insists he chose to do it because it was the right thing. Besides, this world is filled with malicious people, not just survivors. And those guys who messed with Gina at the gas station are a perfect example. But even in this messed up world, Yi Huan steps in to help purely out of goodwill. What's so pathetic about that? Gidu assures him that no one else in the world has stepped up to do what Yi Huan has done so far. It works. Yi Huan thanks Gidu. Thumbs up. Arriving on the 8th floor, these two knuckleheads are ready for a showdown. They carefully sneak into the silent hallway, which luckily is also empty. At the far left of the hall, the second door is the entrance to Studio 6. Gidu plans to call out to Jin Chul, not knowing what awaits them. In seconds, a hungry and frantic infected person leaps out to bite Gidu. As he turns his head, Gidu gets so scared it feels like his soul is about to leap out of his body from sheer terror. Just in time, Yi Huan shoves Gidu out of the way, sending the guy flying like a missile. But unfortunately for him, the zombie bites the wrong guy. Panic breaks out. Gidu screams out in worry for Yi Huan, who's been bitten by the zombie. He then throws a powerful punch to get the zombie away. In despair, the young man can't believe he was bitten. Gidu is absolutely losing his mind. Right now, Yi Huan has no idea what's going to happen next. Wondering if he's going to turn too, He asks Gidu if he still has that gun on him. Gidu's composure shatters, and he's drenched in sweat. Unable to process the terrible circumstances, Yi Huan just hopes he still has it. Gidu went from zero to existential dread in a split second. It took him a few moments to process what Yi Huan was implying. Sweating bullets, he demands to know what Yi Huan is thinking. Yi Huan is in a rush to get this over with. He enters Studio 6 and finds the same zombie he'd knocked down earlier. It's trembling. Seeing this horrifying sight, he refuses to sink to that level and become like them. Therefore, he decides to fight with all he has until he loses his mind. Meanwhile, the woman, trembling like a leaf, snaps out of the feverish zombie state, begging Yi Huan to stop. This was not part of the plan. Yi Huan's eyes go wide as he sees a zombie turning back into a human. Yi Huan comes face to face with this anomaly, while Gidu watches from outside the room. Crying inconsolably, she begs Yi Huan to save her. She asks for a chance to prove her innocence, insisting that she hasn't done anything. Completely confused, Yi Huan wonders if she's really infected. However, he can't ignore the fact that she lunged at him and bit him. If she isn't infected, then why did she bite his hand and say nothing? The room fills with the woman's sobs. Yi Huan decides to get her out of this dangerous place and bring her into the studio. The sight sends a wave of terror through Gidu, paralyzing the guy. Out of fear, Yi Huan decides to bring the biter along. He tells the terrified man that she isn't infected, so they can't just leave her here. He decides they'll figure it out once they're somewhere safer. While trying to process this crazy idea, Gidu notices Yi Huan's bitten hand and sees something strange. It turns out the wound healed in a matter of seconds. This shocking revelation hits him like a bucket of cold water. On the other hand, Jin Chol, either lifeless or running on fumes, is lying in a corner waiting for his rescuers. He's sure he can hear something nearby, making him wonder what's happening. Just then, the alert from Gidu's call startles him, and he immediately answers, asking if they're okay. Gidu confirms that they are at Studio 6. Without wasting any time, Gidu tells Jin Chol to open the door. At the door, bewildered and confused, he hesitates, wondering if Gidu is really out there and if the coast is clear. Gidu quickly nods. Model, claiming there are no infected nearby. As he opens the door, Gidu sees Ji Huan comforting the former infected person. Jin Chol and the ex-zombie devour Gina's rice balls as if they hadn't eaten in days. Meanwhile, Gidu praises Jin Chol for keeping the broadcast going for a whole week by himself. Seeing their ravenous hunger, Ji Huan tells the guys to calm down. There's enough for everyone. Jin Chol mentions he found some food here, so for now, he's satisfied. He believes that, compared to the woman who went a week without eating, he's in a better position, eating like crazy, and chugging water even faster. He finally takes a good, long breath, and in that moment, he thanks his heroes for saving his life. He has no idea how to repay them. Ji Huan downplays it, and Gidu confirms her name is Choi Sujin. When asked, Sujin says she works at the department store. It turns out, she was heading to MD for a sponsorship for her broadcast when suddenly, chaos erupted in the hallway. All at once, screams filled the station, from every direction. Sensing something was wrong, she tried to run, but luck was not on her side. She stumbled right into a horde of zombies. They tore her apart, dragging her into the darkness. Now, as she recalls it, tears fill her eyes. Ji Huan lets her calm down, and they sit in silence for 2 minutes. Breaking the silence, Jin Cheol asks, "What do you remember, Sujin?" After a moment of thought, she says she heard 2 voices, leaving Ji Huan and Gidu stunned. At first it was soft, she says. Then it gradually grew louder, followed by the taste of blood. Panic washes over her as Sujin recounts that she felt strangely strong. As she remembers, the memory is still so vivid in her mind, it lingers on her lips as if it just happened. Seeing that these starving people hadn't even had a moment's rest, Ji Huan decided to continue this conversation in a better setting. For now, they let the woman rest. Later, Jin Chol is fascinated to find out this woman was a former zombie. Gidu confirms she tried to attack him, but she bit Ji Huan and suddenly turned human again. Needless to say, Ji Huan's arm, which took the nasty bite, didn't get infected, and of course, the wound healed as if it had never been there. Jin Cheol had already figured it out without Gidu's report. After witnessing Ji Huan's unnatural immunity to zombies, nothing surprises him anymore. In fact, this whole situation made him think of a new hypothesis. Since the cause of the crisis still hasn't come to light, not even the government could keep up, and martial law was useless. Jin Cheol contemplates the possibility that an airborne virus could be turning people into zombies. Gidu asks why it doesn't affect them. Jin Cheol explains that they have bodies with primary immunity, resistant to airborne infection. This whole theory leaves them speechless. Even if their immunity only worked against airborne infections, the easy transmission, through blood or saliva, like a bite, could still turn them into zombies. In Jihuan's case, Jin Cheol formulated the theory of total body immunity, making Jihuan the safest person in the world. So, when Sujin tasted Jihuan's blood during the bite, it somehow turned her human again. This entire explanation now points to Jihuan. Jin Cheol says that Jihuan might not just be immune, but a walking, talking vaccine. Jihuan stands frozen, trying to process what he just heard. The idea of being a vaccine seems impossible. However, everything that's happened makes him reconsider. His mind keeps replaying the events that led to this moment, searching for an explanation. But it's Jin Cheol, who has been carefully observing the situation, who explains that it's just a two theory. However, based on what they've seen, it makes the most sense. Gidu chimes in, suggesting they take their time to think things through properly. The situation is complicated, and rushing to conclusions won't help. Reviewing everything carefully is the only way to understand what's happening. Afterward, they recall when Sujin had already turned into a zombie and bit Ji Huan. According to the rules of infection, he should have turned as well. Yet, he's standing there, unharmed. Ji Huan's blood could be the cure to stop it. The idea seems impossible, but given the situation, it can't be ignored. When Sujin, already turned into an infected, bit him, his blood somehow entered her mouth. Instead of making things worse, it cured her almost instantly. Normally, a virus isn't neutralized that quickly, but the results prove it. If this theory is correct, it would explain why the infected never attacked him. It's not just immunity. His blood acts as a vaccine. Even a minimal amount is enough to reverse the infection. This means Ji Huan doesn't just resist the virus, he might be the only person capable of stopping it. His blood could hold the cure the world needs. If the infected can be cured, then his parents weren't truly gone. That means they were still human, and there was a chance to save them. This realization hits Ji Huan hard, to rethink everything he has done since he woke up. Even while traveling here, he's taken down so many of the infected, without a second thought. Moreover, it hits him that he wasn't just trying to survive. He was ending lives that could potentially be saved. Jidu reminds him that he's protecting many others and that there is no other choice. Survival means making difficult decisions, no matter how complicated. Since this all began, they've run into all kinds of people. Some are worse than the infected. Not all monsters are zombies. Some are humans who lose their humanity, showing that the real danger isn't just the virus, but people themselves. No one can judge Yi Huan for his actions because he never harms anyone. If anything, he protects them. Instead of just arguing, they decide to confirm the truth. A suggestion comes up to test what Yi Huan has become, and the best way to do this is by making his presence known. They plan to feature him on the radio broadcast that night. This will reveal whether he truly holds the key to a cure or if something else is hidden beneath his existence. Yi Huan feels unsure about the idea of participating in a live radio broadcast. The thought of speaking in front of so many people makes him hesitate. Later, he gets on a video call with Gina and explains his situation, how they want him to speak on the radio. He's afraid he's not as special as they think, and worries about creating false hope. However, Gina assures him that in this world, no one is more extraordinary than him. She then suggests that Yi Huan's sister might be listening to the broadcast, encouraging him to do his best. He appreciates the support and thanks them. Realizing he needs to save his battery, he promises to talk later, but before hanging up, he asks Gina to send his regards to her parents. After the call, Sujin teases him, asking if that was his girlfriend, and he quickly denies it. But she isn't convinced, pointing out that she sounded like she thought he was special. Then Jidu jumps in, making him feel even more embarrassed, and teases Yi Huan by saying that even Gina's parents already think they're a couple, so there's no point in denying it. Sun Jinchul asks if Yi Huan has rested, mentioning that everything is ready and it's time to prepare. But Yi Huan hesitates, worried about making mistakes during the live broadcast. The man calms him with a laugh, saying that mistakes don't matter that much anymore. Then, radio host Sun Jinchul begins the broadcast by acknowledging the numerous messages of support and concern from listeners. Despite the lack of data and electricity, people are still communicating, and he thanks them for their kindness by giving something back in return. He introduces a special guest, the first on the show. We introduce the one who has sparked the most curiosity and given hope in these difficult times. The enigmatic figure, the man on the motorcycle, Kang Iwan, is finally on the air. Afterward, the radio host asks Kang Iwan to introduce himself to the listeners. Iwan is nervous but determined, hesitating before he speaks. He states his name and age, revealing that he works as an embalmer. The host mentions that many reports have come in about Yi Huan, and while some details need verification, there's one question that stands out as the most important. He asks if it's true that the infected don't attack him. After a brief pause, Yi Huan confirms that the reports are true, saying the infected neither bite nor attack him. They barely even acknowledge his presence. Afterward, the host admits it sounds unbelievable and that he had a hard time accepting it at first. However, after witnessing it himself several times, he can no longer deny the truth. The host then mentions reports suggesting that Yi Huan has been traveling east and asks if he has a specific destination. Yi Huan confirms that he does. He's heading to Yangyang in Gangwon province, where his family is, hoping to reunite with them despite the dangers along the way. The host then admits that Yangyang is far away and wonders if there are any listeners there. Suddenly, a report comes in from a listener in Sokcho, a nearby area. The unexpected message grabs everyone's attention. The host reveals that the listener also evacuated from Yangyang to Sokcho. According to them, the military has already passed through Yangyang, leaving nothing behind. Yi Huan processes the news, realizing his journey might have been in vain, and that his family's fate is uncertain. Yi Huan tries to accept that Yangyang might be completely gone. Jidu, equally alarmed, questions if the military really destroyed the entire area. Afterward, the host steps in to clarify, explaining that according to available reports, the military did take action in Yangyang. The phrase "nothing is left" is ambiguous. It could mean there are no survivors, or just that the infected were eliminated. This uncertainty leaves Yi Huan anxious, not knowing if his family is still alive or if he's been chasing a lost cause. Then, the host stresses the importance of confirming the claims before. More details about the situation in Yangyang would help clarify what happened. The producer confirms that the army acted when the crisis broke out, immediately declaring martial law. However, after that initial response, their movements have been limited. Reports indicate they are pulling out of metropolitan areas quickly, causing traffic restrictions and more chaos. However, the case of Yangyang might be different, suggesting that something unusual happened there compared to the rest of the country. The host suggests that the army might have evacuated the survivors in Yangyang, taking them to a safer location. He also encourages Yi Huan to hold on to hope. Yi Huan then thinks about his sister's love for the radio. Since they were children, they always listened to it together, finding comfort in its presence. She thought it made their home feel calm, more alive, and less lonely. If she's safe, she's surely listening to this broadcast right now. Just as he's always been, Yi Huan remains firm, stating that no matter what happened in Yangyang, it doesn't change his objective. He's going there to find his sister. Furthermore, if she is listening to the broadcast, he wants her to stay strong and hang on a little longer, promising that he will come for her no matter what. The host acknowledges Yi Huan's determination and thanks him for his efforts. The host shares that many listeners have sent messages of support, thanking Yi Huan for giving them courage. Gidu then teases him, saying that he was nervous at first but adapted quickly, joking that perhaps he chose the wrong career. Yi Huan immediately denies it, and Gidu suggests he get used to the radio. Why? Because, when things calm down, the media will want to interview him. He might even become a global star afterward. The woman hesitates before asking, but the host encourages her to speak. She wonders why he didn't talk about his cure on the broadcast, thinking it could have given the listeners hope. The host admits that he left that part out for Yi Huan's sake. If people knew his blood could cure the infected, they might see him as a hero or a savior. Although that sounds ideal, things might not be so simple, because the weight of something like that could bring unexpected consequences that Yi Huan might not be ready for. Furthermore, the host says that if the truth about Yi Huan's blood gets out, he might not just be a hero, but a resource. Under the guise of helping humanity, he could end up as nothing more than a test subject. Another person agrees, acknowledging the possibility and urging Yi Huan to keep it a secret. With the current situation, trusting the army or the government isn't an option. The priority should be rescuing his sister. Yi Huan understands and decides to check the broadcast station more thoroughly. Before leaving, Gidu hands him a clean gun. Yi Huan then hesitates, wondering if he really needs to take the gun for a quick look around, but Gidu insists that he should take it, just in case. He understands Yi Huan's feelings, but warns him not to let his guard down. The more he does, the more vulnerable he becomes. Right now, he has every right to be selfish until he saves his sister. Yi Huan takes the advice to heart and thanks him before heading out, determined to continue his search. Gidu is surprised by the statement, explaining that Yi Huan is kind but lacks strong determination. At 28 years old, he still faces many challenges. His kindness is a strength, but it can also be a weakness in this world. A gentle heart can break long before the body does. That's why Gidu is key. Every time Yi Huan loses hope, Gidu helps him keep going. The host then agrees that Yi Huan is made stronger by the support he has. Without help, getting to Yang Yang would be impossible. To which, Gidu doesn't hesitate to say he will help Yi Huan, not just because it's an important story, but also because Yi Huan once helped him. Su Jin, who was nearby, hesitates before speaking. Gidu confirms that he's traveling with Yi Huan, to which the woman expresses her interest in joining them. Gidu didn't expect this request and is surprised by her sudden decision. Gidu hesitates for a moment before responding to Sujin's request. Traveling together isn't easy, and he asks if she has any personal connection to Yang Yang. Sujin explains that she was shocked to hear about Yang Yang on the radio. The military unit that moved through the area isn't just any group to her. Her father is the commander of the 4th Armored Brigade stationed there. Before we continue with the story, let's take a look at our boy's past. There, we see an old woman named Elle. She feels guilty for accepting help and money. Yi Huan's sister, eager to help, kindly assures her that it's not a burden, just a gesture of kindness. She hopes the woman enjoys a meal with her grandchildren, adding that skipping meals is not an option. Elle thanks her very much for this. A few moments later, as he's having trouble paying for lunch, Yi Huan asks his sister why she gave the money away. She downplays it, saying she has enough money to buy an old lady lunch. She also mentions that she climbs this hill every week to pick up trash and papers. Even though it's kind of pointless, she does it anyway. That's what she calls a sense of true, unseen goodwill, the simple reasons that keep humanity together. This leads her to hope that one day Yi Huan will carry on that same goodwill, so she asks him if he will. Finishing his trip down memory lane, alone on a bench, lost in thoughts of the past, he looks at his last messages to elder sister Lich. A somberness unfolds. Later, Guido asks if Miss Suin's father is the deputy commander of the 4th Armored Brigade. Suin says that he is Colonel Choi Un-cheol, formerly in Chaoyuan, and now in Zhengyang. As of last year, her family moved to Zhengyang, but she stayed in Seoul for work. Yi Huan feels like his whole world was turned upside down in just 1 week without any warning. He also thinks that this woman feels a sense of security with him and probably wants to accompany them. In that instant, his mind changed. Colonel Choi Un-cheol, that name sounds familiar, and he was in Chaoyuan until last year. Something clicks in his mind. Meanwhile, Jin Cheol considers letting Suin join them, which isn't so bad considering the army is taking control of Zhengyang. He believes it's probably the 4th Armored Brigade's unit. That unit is guarding the area. Civilians are not allowed in. For Mrs. Suin, this civilian is directly related to the deputy commander's family, which completely changes the situation. Furthermore, Jin Cheol concludes that only the military base is safe. In times like these, even knowing the way to Zhengyang isn't easy. It requires a lot of planning to get past the infected. It could take longer than expected. However, the option to leave still sounds better than staying behind and doing nothing. Suin breaks the silence, expressing her desire to reunite with her family. They decide to discuss it further when Yi Huan returns. Yi Huan listens as Suin asks if she can join them on the trip. He has no problem with her joining, knowing that her family is in Zhengyang. And Guido gave Yi Huan a reality check, telling him they weren't going to Zhengyang on a vacation to eat rice balls. Yi Huan knows the risks are real. In times like these, family comes first, without a doubt. He adds that he's traveling to Zhengyang for his sister. Suin relates to that, hoping she won't be a burden to them later on. So, they ask Jin Cheol what's next. He says that now that he has some hope, he's going to keep broadcasting from here. With that in mind, he asks them to share any information they gather on the way to Zhengyang. Jin Cheol also says that he receives reports from all over the country, but there's little information about military bases. Also, almost no one makes long journeys like they do. Jin Cheol mentions that places like Seoul and the metropolitan area are pretty much on lockdown. He guesses that if the military or the government are still operational, they've likely moved their bases to the provinces. Because of this, Jin Cheol thinks that broadcasting their journey to Zhengyang, like a live documentary, would mean a lot to his surviving listeners. He hopes that Yi Huan can rescue his sister and be reunited with her. In the meantime, he plans to stay and help. Yi Huan gives him a small smile, promising to come back for him. Then, Guido restocks Jin Cheol's food for at least a month. Jin Cheol worries that it's risky to give away their supplies before heading to Zhengyang, but Guido assures him they'll go to a supermarket to restock. Yi Huan also confirms that the 8th floor is clear of zombies, so they are no longer trapped. Jin Cheol thanks Yi Huan for saving him in more ways than one. He dreams of the day they can broadcast together again, and next time, with his sister too. Putting their hands together in a circle, they wish each other good luck before parting ways. After that, Jin Cheol watches the trio walk away, leaving him alone with hope. Once the guy and his friends are outside, he starts his bike, taking the lead, while Guido and Suin get settled in the car. With engines roaring, they hit the road. Full throttle. Guido follows close behind Yi Huan, who vows to bring Lich back. This time, with the door jammed by the pile of junk, Lich's daughter sleeps peacefully. She gently tells her to hang on a little longer, saying that Uncle Yi Huan will be here to get them soon. Meanwhile, the trio's journey comes to a halt when they find the highway jammed with the wreckage of abandoned cars. Even though they try, they can't get the bike through the mess blocking the path. Guido had already anticipated that their trip to Zhengyang wouldn't be a walk in the park, but he hadn't counted on this much trouble. According to him, they might have to take a much longer detour than he initially thought. Suyin looks at the map and suggests Route 86. She thinks there won't be as much destruction there. Yidu thinks it's a good idea, so he tells Ji Huan which road they'll be taking. But Ji Huan seems distracted by worrisome thoughts. Seeing a dead family in front of him makes his heart sink, but he shakes off the feeling and responds to his friend. Shortly after, they arrive at Nangyu Station. There, they encounter a few zombies that the trio easily takes down with their combined efforts. Afterward, they sit down to prepare some food. Night falls, and they take shelter in their car. Ji Huan checks his phone. He sent many messages to his sister, but there's still no reply. Morning comes, and the road they were following ends in a dead end. There are many roads they could take, but finding one that actually leads to Yangyang is another problem. Filtering for a safe route is even more complicated. They finally decide to take a short break here before moving on. The place is isolated and quiet, so it shouldn't be too risky. After all, they've been exhausting themselves looking for the safest route. A short breather to recharge is well deserved. Su Yin takes the opportunity to go into the woods to relieve herself. As she disappears into the foliage, Yidu doubts if she should be wandering off like that. On the other hand, they can't follow her. They just hope she's safe, since the direction she took leads to a deserted mountain. Still, it's not easy for a woman to keep up with them, especially since they've been pushing forward without rest or time to regroup. She must be tired from trying not to slow them down. It seems she really is tired from being the only woman with the guys, but in the end, she can't complain, since she was the one who insisted on coming along. If only she could ask Ji-won to keep watch while she does her business, but that's not possible. Her worst fear comes true when an armed guy suddenly gets behind her, pointing his gun barrel at her. Her scream echoes through the forest so loudly that Yidu and Ji-hwan go on high alert. Ji-hwan doesn't hesitate and runs like a lightning bolt toward the source of that distressed scream. He yells her name, hoping for a response, and runs into the same soldier-looking guy terrorizing Su Yin. The man demands that Ji-hwan drop his weapon. Leaving no room for risks, our boy drops his bat without hesitation. The soldier asks Ji-hwan about his identity and why he's here. Ji-hwan, on the other hand, is also trying to figure out who this guy is. It's obvious he's a survivor, but something doesn't add up. Where did he get that gun? He doesn't look like a real soldier. Not wanting to risk Su Yin's life, Ji-hwan simply raises his hands and tells the man that she's his companion. The only reason he's here is because he followed her scream. The fake soldier then demands to know why Ji-hwan and his friend are in the mountains, since there's nothing here. Ji-hwan, deciding to be honest, explains his mission, which is to get to Yangyang and find his family. But he and his friends accidentally got lost. They ended up wandering all day and stopped here to rest. Besides, the place seemed safe, so there was no reason to keep going without a break. Well, finally, the fake soldier lowers his weapon and apologizes for causing a panic. He admits it was rude to act like that. He sensed movement on an empty mountain and mistook them for infected. He then helps the distraught Su Yin to her feet. He finally takes off his helmet and introduces himself as Yang Ton. As a gesture of goodwill, he apologizes once more for scaring them. Ji-hwan in turn returns the courteous gesture by introducing himself. It seems Yidu has also reached the area, as they can clearly hear him calling for Ji-hwan. Hearing someone else approach, Yang Ton asks how many of them there are. Ji-hwan responds by holding up 3 fingers. Yang Ton, seeing how tired they are, invites them to go with him. The place he's currently staying isn't exactly comfortable, but it's better than sleeping outside. At least there are plenty of extra rooms to accommodate everyone. It turns out there's a nearby motel that Yang Ton found by pure chance. The place looks more like a guest house, but they can still use it as a shelter. It's the safest place to live right now, and the number of people taking refuge there proves it. But with so many survivors together, food is becoming a real problem. Su Yin is curious to know how many people are there. Yang Ton says there are about 30 people, including children and women. Of course, this revelation is not good news for Yidu. According to him, a guest house in the valley is unlikely to have any grocery stores nearby, making a lack of food an inevitable problem. Yang Ton admits that food has always been an issue, and that's why he ventured out here. He had tried to gather supplies from markets and stores in the city's shopping center, but the entire area was already filled with infected people, which made his food run a complete failure. But then he stumbled upon a large warehouse not too far from here, so he was heading there by taking a detour through the mountains. Jiddu thinks that, if there's really a warehouse around here, it might have enough supplies to feed the 30 people for a while. Yuan suddenly points out the risks of wandering around alone and hopes that Taijun is fully aware of the dangers. Well, Taijun had already taken that into account before heading out on this food run, which is why he came alone. If something went wrong, at least only he would be at risk. Still, to Yuan, the idea of one person gathering supplies for 30 people just doesn't sit right with him. Suddenly, they hear footsteps approaching. Taijun becomes alert and raises his weapon, ready to shoot. A horde of zombies is closing in. Before firing, Taijun tells the kid to get back, since being in the middle of this is very dangerous. But of course, my boy doesn't even flinch. Even Taijun can't help but notice that detail. Instead of backing away, he starts moving toward the infected, completely ignoring Taijun's warning. He doesn't want to waste any unnecessary bullets. They could be crucial in critical situations. Taijun still doesn't get what Yuan means, until it all clicks when my guy pulls out his bat, with the clear intention of handling the situation himself. As the horde moves in, Taijun yells loudly, warning Yuan about the danger he's getting himself into. Facing a massive group of infected like that is just asking for a death wish. Jiddu tries to reassure the worried man. He knows that trusting Yuan is the right move right now, and is convinced that Taijun will come to the same conclusion, by watching for himself. As the hideous bastards get closer, Yuan remains completely still. Just as expected, the zombies walk right past him, as if he were completely invisible. Taijun is understandably losing his mind, but that's just the beginning, because now he's about to see Yuan smash these scumbags like they're nothing. And so, the battle begins. Yuan grabs one of the fools and throws him with such force into the others that they fall like dominoes. He only needs one swing of his bat per zombie. He goes wild, landing blow after blow, easily piling up the bodies. Meanwhile, Taijun's eyes are practically popping out of his skull, as if he's just seen something incredibly shocking. The display of strength Yuan is putting on is absolutely incredible. His brain can barely process what he's just witnessed, and more importantly, not a single one of the infected even tried to attack him. Seeing how shocked Taijun is, Jiddu remarks that he must not have been following the radio broadcasts. Yuan admits that it's a bit hard to believe, but what they've just witnessed is very real. The zombies don't even dare to bite Yuan. With the threat neutralized, Yuan calmly walks back over to Taijun, ready to continue their previous chat as if nothing happened. He points out that even if Taijun found a warehouse, moving supplies for 30 people without a vehicle would be a nightmare. It's impossible, especially since danger can pop up at any moment, just like it did now. But Yuan is ready to help Taijun in his efforts, making sure that everyone at the boarding house doesn't go to sleep hungry. Happily, we approach the boarding house, where a few guards are standing outside, on the lookout for any danger. That's when they spot two vehicles approaching quickly. Naturally, they start to panic. After all, nobody at the boarding house has a car or a motorcycle. To them, whoever is inside could be looters, since zombies can't drive. Without hesitation, they raise their weapons, ready to take down those bastards. But just as the car screeches to a halt, Taijun quickly jumps out, waving his arms to stop the trigger-happy group. As expected, the guards soon identify him. They quickly head over to their captain, not wasting any time asking about the people he's brought with him. Taijun doesn't hesitate to give credit where it's due, acknowledging that his new companions were a huge help. Then he shares even better news. They've found a warehouse, so food won't be a problem. For now, the back seat of the car is loaded with instant ramen and canned food. And in the trunk, there are sacks of rice. The soldiers are relieved, at least for now. They can make sure no child goes to sleep hungry. Even though they manage to bring back a car full of supplies, Yuan still isn't sure if it will be enough for everyone in the building. Taijun understands what Yuan is getting at, but since they've secured a source of emergency food, they can always go back to the warehouse for more. Then, without hesitation, Taijun bows his head, nodding to express his gratitude for all the help Yuan and his friends have provided. But Yuan thinks the gratitude is unnecessary, especially since Taijun has already expressed himself enough. Then, out of nowhere, Taijun says he needs more help and also wants to introduce someone to Yuan. This piques Yuan's curiosity, making him wonder who he's about to meet. Suddenly, a female voice rings out, calling for Taijun. Yuan is completely stunned when he sees who it is. It's someone he wasn't expecting at all. Well, she's a doctor. She's dying of curiosity, eager to know why Taejun came back so suddenly, especially since he'd said he wouldn't be back until tomorrow. In response, Taejun gestures to his new companions. He explains how they helped him, cutting his trip short. Thanks to them, he found a supply warehouse and brought back much-needed food. For now, they're well-stocked and don't have to worry about running out of supplies. Taejun introduces the trio to Dr. Han So-yoon, a key person in their group who looks after everyone. She seems a bit embarrassed, feeling that Taejun is giving her more credit than she deserves. She insists that Taejun is the one who truly takes care of everyone, protecting them from outside threats. Besides, she's only in her second year of residency, so being called a doctor feels like a bit much. Yi-hwan notices something crucial. Everyone trusts Taejun, without a doubt. Even the guards call him captain, showing the great respect they have for him. Anyway, Dr. So-yoon is interested in how Yi-hwan and his group got here. Well, that's a bit of a complicated question, so the answer is going to be just as long and complicated. But our boy tries to summarize it. Apparently, they're not from around here, and are actually trying to get from Seoul to Yangyang for reasons they can't disclose. Dr. So-yoon is surprised to hear this. The destination they want to reach is extremely far away, and with the roads full of zombies, abandoned vehicles, and chaos blocking the way, making that journey is practically impossible. Yi-hwan agrees with her. They've already encountered countless blocked roads, which forces them to keep detouring onto smaller roads. Honestly, God only knows how they ended up here. Just then, a guy named Manhwa shows up, looking for the captain. The guy is here to remind Taejun about the task of moving supplies. Taejun acknowledges him and entrusts him with the unloading job. With that, he and the doctor lead the newcomers to the rooms. Not gonna lie, this Manhwa guy seems suspicious. Dawn begins to break, casting a soft light over the pension. Inside, people are gathering in the cafeteria. They're savoring their long-awaited meals. The air buzzes with a rare joy as they enjoy the delicious food. It's something they haven't had the luxury of enjoying in a long time. Yi-hwan watches, surprised to see so many children. He wasn't expecting so many. Taejun tells him, there are 9 children in total, including infants. The pension might have originally been a motel, but since it was managed more like a lodge, it had a separate dining area. Although they managed to gather some food supplies, they were never enough to last more than a few days. If it weren't for Yi-hwan and his friends, that problem wouldn't have been solved. Taejun is grateful. As always, Yi-hwan downplays his contributions, which leads to An Yuan, who has a question. A question has been on her mind for a while. She's noticed that the guards outside and almost everyone here calls Taejun captain. She wonders if there's any special reason behind this title. Being modest, Taejun admits that he felt overwhelmed at first, being called captain, but over time, he got used to it. Before the chat can go any further, a soldier shows up looking for Taejun. It seems Dr. So-yoon wants to see him. Believing it must be important, Taejun decides to go. We see Dr. So-yoon's baffled expression. She's in shock after learning that Yi-hwan doesn't attract zombies. They don't try to bite him, nor do they show any aggression towards him. They don't even seem to recognize him, as if he doesn't exist. It's like he's invisible to them. Taejun backs up Yi-hwan's claim, having seen it firsthand. He remembers how the infected didn't even notice Yi-hwan, even though he was defenseless among them. Even after seeing it, he still finds it hard to believe. That's why he's hoping Dr. So-yoon can offer some kind of logical explanation for Yi-hwan's condition. The doctor admits there must be a medical reason behind it, but she won't know for sure until she runs a thorough examination. She also believes this madness was caused by an infection. With no clear answers, for now, it's just speculation. Yi-hwan lets that sink in before asking a question. If this outbreak is caused by a viral infection, is there any chance of developing a vaccine or a cure? Dr. So-yoon hesitates before answering. In theory, it might be possible, but with all the infrastructure destroyed and no staff or equipment available, the chances of success are practically non-existent. Even if Yi-hwan has immunity, it won't do any good if a cure can't be developed, mean they can create a drug from it. Besides, it seems Yi-hwan hasn't revealed the most crucial detail. His blood can bring mindless zombies back to their senses. He finally decides to explain. Model. An infected person who takes his blood can recover completely. With that in mind, he asks if this could increase the chance of creating a cure. Gidu and Sujin, who were listening in silence, are stunned. They didn't expect him to reveal something so critical. Taeyeon is also suddenly very intrigued and wants Yizhuan to give more details. That's when Yizhuan clears up their doubts, revealing that he was once bitten on the arm by an infected person, but instead of turning into one himself, nothing happened to him. On the contrary, the infected person that bit him regained consciousness and turned back to normal. After coming to their senses, they only had mild chills and dehydration, but no other health problems. Gidu and Sujin notice that Yijuan avoids mentioning that the infected person was Sujin. Therefore, Gidu and Sujin decide to act as if they are unaware of anything Yijuan is saying. Meanwhile, Yijuan explains further, if his blood acts as a vaccine, perhaps people could be cured without extensive research. Dr. Soyun pauses before speaking. She doesn't doubt Yijuan, especially after everything he's done. But as a doctor, she can't just take his word for it. She wants to test it on someone who is actually infected. She needs to see the cure with her own eyes. Mentioning an experiment makes it seem like she wants to turn Yijuan into a guinea pig. Sensing this, Dr. Soyun adjusts her request. Instead of calling it an experiment, she insists it's more of a request. Tayin quickly understands what she's thinking. It seems there's a specific test subject in mind, someone she wants Yijuan to cure, and it turns out they were already prepared for this. Dr. Soyun finally reveals the truth. There is an infected person here. She assures them that the person has been quarantined in the basement for 3 days. At first, everyone thought they just had the flu, but then symptoms of infection started to appear, and before long, they became aggressive and began attacking people. In the end, Tayin had to lure them into the basement and barely managed to lock them inside. Now, they can see if Yijuan's blood really cures the infected. Gidu asks if that person was bitten before. Dr. Soyun answers with a clear no. They examined the victim thoroughly, but found no wounds or scars. Sujin asks Gidu if it could take that long for an infected person to show symptoms. For Gidu, this case is unique. He has never seen anything like it before, though he thinks the infection might show up differently depending on a person's constitution. Yijuan understands his role in the experiment. He has to feed the infected his blood and see if they get cured. Dr. Soyun agrees with this idea. If an infected person recovers after ingesting Yijuan's blood, it would indicate that not only is Yijuan immune, but he himself could be the cure, a living vaccine. Of course, Yijuan and Gidu start to panic upon hearing those words. They've heard them before. The consequences of being a living vaccine are obvious. Yijuan could end up as a guinea pig for scientists eager to experiment. Gidu shares his concerns. Intentionally having the infected bite Yijuan is very dangerous. There's no telling what other risks might arise. Dr. Soyun quickly clarifies that she doesn't want Yijuan to be bitten. Instead, she goes to a drawer and pulls out an empty syringe, suggesting they just need to introduce his blood into the infected person's body. Using a syringe should be effective, but since no one else can safely get close to the infected, Yijuan will be responsible for injecting them. After a moment of silence, Yijuan accepts the task, which upsets Gidu. However, Yijuan remains firm. Even if there's just a small chance, he wants to give it his all. Later, as night falls, the scene shifts outside. A guard by the gate feels proud of his captain, who successfully brought back food. Thanks to him, they won't have to worry about hunger for a while. Nearby is Moonho, the same lazy guy we saw earlier. He seems lost in thought, prompting his fellow guard to snap him out of it by calling his name loudly. The talkative one walks away, visibly annoyed after being completely ignored. Meanwhile, Mio is closely watching Yijuan's group's vehicles. As I mentioned before, this guy seems very suspicious. It wouldn't be surprising if he tried something shady. Inside, Tayin asks Yijuan about his decision to join the experiment. If he's not up for it, he shouldn't force himself. As expected, Yijuan is still determined. He assures Tayin that he can handle it just fine. Besides, he was the one who brought it up, so backing down isn't an option. That's when Tayin points to a little girl sitting in front of them. The infected person in the basement is her mother. This revelation sends a chill down Yijuan's spine. The little girl's story is even more heartbreaking. Fate had already been cruel. She watched her father turn into one of the infected. Worse yet, he tried to attack them. Her mother was brave enough to escape with her daughter and seek refuge here. But in the end, she too succumbed to the infection. Almost 3 days ago, when her mother showed the first symptoms, they managed to avoid getting bitten. For everyone's safety, Taijun had no choice but to shoot her mother. However, in the end, he couldn't bear the little girl's desperate sobs. In the end, he couldn't bring himself to finish the job. So he and a few others locked her mother in the basement instead of killing her outright. It was the only way to ensure everyone's survival. The daughter was told that her mother would get better someday. This tragic story leaves the trio in stunned silence. Their hearts sink with remorse for the little girl who has suffered so much loss. When Yuan looks at her, he is reminded of his own sweet niece, his sister's daughter. This strengthens his resolve. He is determined to face the risk. Looking at Taijun, he assures him that he will be the light of hope in the little girl's dark world. The key to that hope is his blood, which he now holds in his hand. Shortly after, a soldier arrives, reporting that it's almost time for the shift change. Taijun acknowledges the report and assures the soldier he'll be there soon. Before leaving, he informs the trio that 2 rooms have been prepared for them to rest. He hopes they can get some good rest. Gidu is thrilled at the thought of a proper rest. Right now, getting a good night's sleep is the greatest luxury they could wish for. After wishing them good night and thanking them, Taijun heads upstairs, leaving Juan beaming with joy at their host's warmth. Sujin can't help but comment on how reliable and kind Taijun is. He truly embodies the virtues of a great leader, taking care of his people. While Sujin and Juan appreciate the positive aspects of this place, Gidu can't shake the unsettling feeling creeping up on him. Something about this place feels suspicious. The first major thing to note is that everyone here is armed with rifles. Even though this is definitely not a military base, they have set up defenses around the motel and even enforce guard shifts. All of this seems like too much for civilians just trying to survive. Just then, Mio, the same lazy guy from before, appears behind Gidu and reveals that their captain was a soldier. The sudden intervention startles Gidu so much that his brain freezes for a moment. He regains his composure and questions Mio about his statement. Manhwa adds that Taijun led a platoon in the army's 3rd Division, and that the rifles were taken from his unit. Now Gidu understands why everyone calls him captain. Manhwa admits that Gidu is right to be suspicious. However, he warns him to be careful when voicing his concerns. Everyone here adores their captain without reservation, and won't take kindly to someone doubting him. As Mio prepares to leave, Juan stops him with a question of her own. If Taijun was a military officer, why did he abandon his unit and end up here? Manhwa is silent for a moment, before stating that Taijun deserted his unit, earning him the title of a deserting officer. Gidu takes this revelation well. Meanwhile, Mio admits he doesn't know the exact reason behind Taijun's desertion, but he confirms that it's true, as he has verified it with the captain himself. While Gidu now understands how they got their weapons, Sujin asks if Taijun ever plans to return to the army. Manhwa doesn't give a clear answer and suggests asking Taijun directly. Apparently, no one here has had the courage to ask him, nor does it seem like anyone cares about his past. With that, Mio walks away, leaving the trio deep in thought. Sujin starts to doubt if staying is a good idea. Gidu also feels uneasy. There are many things that don't add up. He turns to Yuan, wanting to know his opinion. Gidu acknowledges that these people might not be dangerous to Juan, but he isn't sure if they can really be trusted. Yuan looks at the little girl who lost her mother to the infection. He acknowledges that everyone here has their own story, but that's not what matters right now. Now, he just wants to do what he can. If it's the right thing to do, he won't hold back. Later that night, we see Taijun, who is all alone, quietly carrying out his duty. The camera focuses on his bracelet, zooming in to show his name and serial number. His remorse-filled eyes make it clear that his past haunts him. Then, a memory from his past returns. His entire unit turned into mindless zombies. They devour one another. Among them is his best friend, Yunchul, who also succumbed to the madness. The loss was devastating, so much so that Taijun had screamed at the top of his lungs. To this day, those memories haunt him, making him feel uneasy and angry whenever they resurface. Dr. Seo Yoon joins him, also asking why he is on guard duty alone. Taijun, still trapped in his memories, turns to her with a smile, hiding his anguish. She's afraid he's pushing himself too hard and asks him to rest, but he ignores her. He's just doing what he can. Everyone here is struggling. If he has the strength to contribute, he won't hold back. Still, So-yoon is worried. She knows he hasn't been sleeping. She gently asks if he's still having nightmares. Taejun smiles, reassuring her that he has grown strong enough to endure them. Besides, he believes this is a deserved punishment. This punishment is so light that it seems like a blessing compared to the sins he committed. So-yoon places a comforting hand on his lap, urging him not to be so hard on himself. He is their leader, their hope. Hearing this, Taejun smiles a little. He wants to do his best not to disappoint those who trust in him, as they share this moment. Once again, we cut back to Miho. As always, she's hiding in the shadows, watching the captain closely, her presence as unsettling as ever. The next day, rain is pouring down hard inside the building. Our trio is having breakfast. Jidu notes that the downpour doesn't seem like it's going to stop anytime soon, and he's relieved to have found shelter, since being stuck outside in this weather would have been a nightmare. Sujin agrees as well, admitting she hadn't considered how unpredictable the weather could be. However, there's another problem. If they stay another night, they might fall too far behind on their mission to reach Zhengyang. Jidu approaches Ji Huan for his opinion, but Ji Huan is distracted, looking at the unanswered messages he sent his sister days ago. He finally says they'll leave at noon. Suddenly, So-yoon and Taejun join them in the dining hall and ask the trio if they slept well. The trio confirms they got the much-needed rest they were longing for, thanks to Taejun's hospitality. But Taejun thinks gratitude is unnecessary. Ji-won is the one who has truly helped the people here, and no amount of thanks can match his contribution. Taejun tries to convince Ji-hwan to stay another night, due to the relentless weather, but Ji-hwan has already made up his mind. They can't afford to seek comfort on this mission. Still, he promises to complete the task he has taken on without any further delay. Ji-won requests to be taken to the basement, where the infected woman is being held. Taejun hesitates for a moment, but ultimately agrees. The group arrives outside the storeroom. Taejun gives Ji-hwan a torch, and Dr. So-yun hands him the syringe with his blood. He just needs to let a few drops fall into the infected woman's mouth. Understanding his task, Ji-hwan opens the door, but first, he warns everyone to stand back from the entrance. They can't take any risks. Once inside, he closes the door so the infected woman can't escape. Taejun is bewildered by Ji-hwan's calmness in the face of danger. Ji-do isn't surprised. He's seen enough to know that Ji-hwan would do anything to help others. Ji-hwan finally sees the infected woman in the light of the torch. She lets out a growl, reacting to the sudden glare. Nevertheless, Ji-hwan greets her as if they were old friends, reassuring her that she's just a few drops of blood away from being reunited with her distraught daughter. Ji-hwan is alone in a room with a zombie mom, while the group outside waits anxiously, holding their breath. Dr. Han So-yoon starts to get restless. The young man has been inside for a while, but the silence is overwhelming. Taejun sees it as a positive sign. No noise means no attacks. They just have to trust that Ji-hwan is truly immune and invisible to the infected. Looking around, Taejun noticed reporter Kim's somber expression and asked him if he was okay. He's fine, but he couldn't help but worry about Ji-hwan. The motorcycle hero might seem composed, but he's actually very sentimental. In the days Kim Guido spent with him, he got to know Ji-hwan well. When it comes to helping, that kid never hesitates. Sometimes he pushes himself too hard for the sake of others. When those efforts fail and he can't help someone, despair hits him harder than anyone else. If he fails to save the infected woman in the dark room with the syringe of blood, he'll be devastated. Dr. Han heard Kim Guido and couldn't help but feel a bit guilty. She now fears she might have pressured the young man too much and asked too much of him on this mission. Reporter Kim stated that Ji-hwan is responsible for his own decision. Knowing that kid, he would have helped anyway if he knew about the problem. Suddenly, the steel doors slowly opened. Ji-hwan came out and asked Dr. Han for help inside. Her anxious mind jumped to the worst possible conclusion, that she might have hurt him or something. But the young man was fine. It's just that the zombie mom is having trouble moving, let alone standing up due to dehydration. She's dangerously thirsty. After confirming that everything was okay, the group escorted the zombie mom out of the dark room and took her to the infirmary to get her hydrated. Dr. Han and Captain Taejun stayed by her bed, monitoring her condition. They also let the child see his mother again. The former zombie is still having trouble adjusting. She's running a fever, but that's definitely better than being a zombie. Right now, she just feels guilty for making everyone worry. With a hint of dread in her voice, she asked if she'd attacked anyone while she was infected. Dr. Han said that Tae-hun handled everything perfectly, and he made sure everyone was safe. Mama Zombie realizes that these people, who barely even knew her, went through so much trouble because of her tragic fate. That's why she's so regretful. Hearing such kind and gentle words seemed to have the opposite effect on the doctor. The captain noticed. Dr. Han said she didn't even do anything. She couldn't treat those who needed help or stop the infection. Ever since they took shelter in this motel, she feels like she's done nothing. The tears she'd been holding back since the world went to hell finally started to fall. As her emotional dam broke, she felt useless, like a leech who could only depend on others to survive. Mama Zombie just woke up from being a rotting undead, and now the doctor is stealing her spotlight. The captain placed a hand on Dr. Han's shoulder, offering firm support. He knows how hard she works for the community. She's done more than enough to keep their people safe and sound. Without her, they'd lose one of their most dependable pillars. Without the doctor, Yuan wouldn't have been able to cure Mama Zombie right here and now. The doctor might feel like she's lacking, but she's an essential part of this group. The captain's words finally managed to calm her down a little. The surgeon, Han Sao, wiped away her tears and steeled herself to do better. Mama Zombie asked Tae-hun about the man who saved her, Yuan. The captain replied that Mr. Savior is outside the room. He mentioned wanting some fresh air, but that might be tricky with the heavy downpour. Sitting by the motel entrance, Yuan watched the rain. Lost in thought, he didn't notice Sujin quietly approaching. She asked him why he was out in the rain all by himself. He had also gotten rid of the clothes he'd been wearing since the start of the outbreak. Luckily, the people at the motel had plenty of clothes in their supplies, so he found some that fit him. Yuan confessed that he didn't expect to feel even more tense than before, now that everything was resolved and the infected were safe. Suddenly, he feels days' worth of fatigue wash over him. During the whole ordeal in that dark room, he was wondering what he would do and what would happen if his blood didn't work. Sujin reassured him that those thoughts are pointless now. As someone who was saved by that very blood, she would know. The first time was an accident. The second time is proof. He could be this world's last hope. But he's not the type to call himself that. After a brief moment of thought, Sujin finally mentioned why she came out looking for Yuan. She had to find him before the others found out who cured the zombie. Right now, the people at the motel just think her condition miraculously improved on its own. Soon, they'll start discussing, theorizing, and asking questions. Before that chaos erupts, Sujin wants to make a sensible suggestion, an idea that would be better for both the motel residents and Yuan. Meanwhile, reporter Kim's car and Yuan's stolen bike finally got a much-needed wash in the parking lot. After discussing the details with Yuan, Sujin brought the idea to the doctor and the captain. She proposed that they keep this cure a secret. They have to hide what happened and what solved the decomposition problem. Sujin had thought long and hard about the implications of Yuan's condition, and this was the best option she could come up with. Captain Tai Hun, ever the short-sighted brute, thought it would be better if everyone knew that Yuan could be their savior. He could be a symbol of hope, something that's so lacking these days. Reporter Kim and the so-called savior were torn. Sujin said that hope is exactly what worries her. If people find out that Yuan's blood cures the infection, a fight to claim him would break out in no time. Knowing humans, it's inevitable. The people here were so blinded by success and hope that they'd forgotten how the world really works. Everyone must have lost loved ones to the outbreak, in one way or another. If they could save their loved ones, they would do anything to make it happen. If they reveal Yuan's secret, can they guarantee his safety? Sujin is the only one here with a working brain, and she was a zombie just a few days ago. Reporter Kim was just now realizing what she was getting at. Yuan's miracle blood could cause utter chaos. Once the information gets out, all sorts of groups would flock here trying to get their hands on Yuan's blood. Sure, the kid has strength and a weird power to control most of them, but what if someone with a rifle gets involved? That would be a different story entirely. Even if zombies don't pose a direct threat to the kid, other human survivors could be his downfall. Reporter Kim was pleased that Sujin was thinking ahead for her friend's well-being. Even though she hates being the one to insist on keeping the secret, this is the best course of action. The matter is something that cannot be ignored. Until they are absolutely sure they can provide security, they can't risk leaking such revolutionary information. Before deciding, Sujin wants to know if the captain can guarantee Ji Hwan's safety. Her question sent the doctor and the captain into deep thought. Of course, Sujin asked not out of doubt, but out of caution. Instead, if they have the slightest uncertainty, it would be better to err on the side of caution. Ji Hwan might be humanity's last hope. Reporter Kim recalled that Paidi Sun had expressed similar concerns a few days ago. He even went further, suggesting that if people discover the miraculous cure in his blood, some powerful people might rush to capture Ji Hwan and use him as a guinea pig. Sure, Ji Hwan is nearly invincible in close combat, but he's not unbeatable. However, against rifles, his superhuman strength would easily be nullified. Thanks to Sujin, they can think this through and make a sound decision. Don't you hate it when zombie hordes are just dumb? After a moment's thought, the doctor was the first to agree that they should hide the truth for now. She trusts everyone here who is dealing with such a delicate issue, but if the information spreads, it would cause great unrest. Since so many people here and throughout this new world have been hurt, their pain could explode in the wrong direction. Hiding the truth would be best for everyone's safety. Now that they have decided to keep the truth about Ji Hwan a secret, Ji Hwan's mind changed the subject, and he asked Dr. Han if the motel had enough medical supplies. To be honest, the small stock of medicine here is about to put the group in a difficult position. They are barely surviving as it is, and if someone gets sick, they could be left helpless. Captain Taehyun gathered some supplies from a nearby clinic, but it's not enough for the entire community. Ji Hwan only asked so he could help in the best way possible. Before leaving for his main objective, he asked for a list of medical supplies. He needed it to help the people at the Moonlight Motel. The rain still showed no signs of stopping. Dr. Han wrote down a clear and extensive list of necessary supplies and gave it to reporter Kim. Although she was grateful for their help, she was still hesitant to send them into a city full of the infected. The reporter just smiled at her concern. He knows full well the danger that lies outside. But if it's for the safety and health of others, helping is the only way the group would feel at ease about leaving, especially because of that stubborn superhuman. Besides, they're armed to the teeth, and, most importantly, they have Ji Hwan on their side. Curiously, that strange, freckled kid, Ham Myung-ho, also put on a raincoat and readied his weapons for the mission. The captain assured him that he had already done enough, and didn't have to come this far with them, but he insisted on joining. Even though the dangers are obvious, the strange kid is still willing to risk his own safety. According to him, he wants to help however he can, and they need all the hands they can get. The captain was moved by Ham Myung-ho's words. He appreciated having one of his men by his side. They headed into the urban area, overrun by the undead. With preparations complete, reporter Kim told them to get in the car. Soo-jin and the doctor said their goodbyes, wishing them luck against the rainy, damp apocalypse. For a brief second, the doctor and the captain exchanged a meaningful glance, the kind of look that says 1,000 words without speaking a single one. Finally, reporter Kim sped off. Soo-jin looked at Dr. Han and assured her that Ji-hwan would keep everyone safe, so there was no need to worry. Still, Dr. Han couldn't help but feel a knot in her stomach. Seeing her desolate expression, Soo-jin smiled mischievously. To break the tension on Dr. Han's beautiful face, Soo-jin asked how long she and Captain Tae-hyun had been so close. She immediately blushed and jumped, startled, acting defensively, which only amused Soo-jin more. She said that the affectionate way they look at each other would make anyone jealous. While the girls were having their fun, the same was happening in the car as it sped towards the city. Reporter Kim was asking the captain about his relationship with Dr. Han, thoroughly enjoying himself in the process. Kim Yu is a skilled journalist. There's no point in hiding a secret from him. To stop the teasing, Captain Tae-hyun said that Han So-yoon was just someone he trusted a great deal. That was it. Nothing more, nothing less. Reporter Kim accepted the answer sarcastically. His lovesick expression telegraphed his true feelings. He thinks that when a man and a woman rely on each other that much, things tend to happen. While the front seats were filled with banter, the back seat had a dark and strange air about it. With Ham Myung-ho staring straight ahead, they drove down the wet highway toward the city, downtown. Reporter Kim pulled up to the curb and checked the location mentioned by the doctor. A small hospital should be easier to secure than risking a large one. Luckily, the area is quiet. Still, they can't relax. They have to move carefully and methodically. Minutes later, Yuan peeked his head through the pharmacy door after confirming there were no zombies inside. Surprisingly, this mission is going smoother than expected. There were no problems on the way, and the building is clear of the undead. Signs of struggle and chaos were everywhere. Some people might have become victims here as the team searches every corner of the hospital for anything useful. Aside from the list, they can also take whatever else is useful, and the doctor will organize it. Amung opened one of the desk drawers and saw something that made him pause. Inside was a sturdy padlock with a key stuck in it. If you're wondering why his eyes went wide seeing that, I don't know either. Keep watching. Hearing the captain ask if he'd found anything useful, the weirdo looked like he'd been struck by lightning. Myung-ho slammed the drawer shut after grabbing the padlock and hiding it from the captain. With this tool, this damn ugly tramp can finally do what he really came here to do. It's still raining outside as the team continues to loot the downtown hospital. The four of them reached the 8th floor and carefully scouted the area. The captain skillfully cleared the corners like some sweaty Counter-Strike player. Reporter Kim is already tired of the work, but at least they only have one more floor left to loot. Plus, they're finding more supplies than expected. It's a good haul. The 8th floor is split into 2 sections. They figured it would be more efficient to split up and explore each section separately. Reporter Kim will go with the captain, and Ji-hwan is stuck with the weirdo, Myung-ho. With no working lights, it became extra dark on the top floor. Anything could jump out from the shadows. Before finally separating, they all agreed to run to the others the moment they heard any unusual noise. Finally, the group split in 2. Myung-ho was quietly lurking behind, hatching a plan. On the captain and reporter's side, they were disappointed by the lack of useful items on the top floor. The only thing Tae-jun found were the stale supplies in the break room. They might as well take everything they can get. Just yesterday, the motel was so low on food that they couldn't pack afternoon snacks for the children. These sweets should cheer up the youngsters. Now that they were alone, reporter Kim thought it was a good time to ask about the captain's past. He only knows that Tae-jun was a military officer. At the mention of his past, the captain uncharacteristically trembled and fell. Moments later, he awkwardly turned to Kim Guido and apologized for not being up front sooner. He had no intention of hiding his past. He just hoped that these kind guests wouldn't find out. What he went through can't be described as a pleasant story. The curious reporter Kim asked for more details, if the captain would be okay with it. Tae-jun closed his eyes, recalling the events that led him to the motel and the nightmare he had to go through just to survive. You see, it's not hard for him to answer, but he feels he doesn't deserve to tell the story. He's not proud of what he did. He killed his own subordinates, and will have to live with that burden for the rest of his life. He feels like an unforgivable sinner. What happened that day was instantaneous. It was bloody, brutal, and terrifying. his unit was suddenly deployed to an unknown location, without knowing their objective. Before they reached their destination, some of his men started having severe convulsions. When they stopped, they began acting strange. They attacked their brothers in arms, and the situation devolved into an uncontrollable bloodbath. There was nothing the captain could do. The last thing he remembered was grabbing his weapon as he saw his men devouring the flesh of his comrades right in front of him. When they finished ripping the flesh from their unfortunate brothers, the infected turned their attention to the shocked captain. At that moment, as his hands trembled under the weight of his gun, only one thought remained in his mind. He had to survive. It was kill or be killed. He pulled the trigger and began unloading bullet after bullet into the skulls of his brothers, not stopping until every one of them was on the ground. It's a difficult memory to relive. After the massacre, Taejun grabbed all the firearms and ammunition he could carry and escaped alone into the night. Eventually, he found himself under the moonlight at a motel. He carries great shame and remorse as a dishonored soldier. When everything settles down, he wants to return to the army and face a fair trial soon, or at least that was his plan before. He can't turn himself in yet. He still has things to do, people who depend on him, and a community to lead and protect. Model. The captain must look crazy given the current situation, but reporter Kim figured this man was suffering from survivor's guilt and a suffocating sense of duty. Now it's clear why the captain and Yi Hwan get along so well. These two men are cut from the same heroic cloth. Reporter Kim apologized for asking such a painful question. He couldn't help it. It's a habit he developed from being a journalist for so long. To go through that and still take on the care of the survivors requires a different kind of determination. It's understandable why his community calls him the captain. It's not just a rank, it's a vote of confidence. Then, reporter Kim found it strange that one of his men called the captain a deserter. It's a strange way to put it. Under the circumstances, why would someone who joined this mission call Taejun something so harsh? Elsewhere in the building, Yi Hwan is searching for anything he can bring back to the group. Unfortunately, he found a closure notice. The floor must have been preparing to close down before everything went to hell. It's not surprising there's barely anything left to scavenge. This sweep of the top floor was useless. Yi Hwan turned to Manhwa and told him about the closure, suggesting they should head back. To the others. For the first time since this mission began, Manhwa spoke up, asking Yi Hwan an interesting question. You have your doubts about June, don't you? The woman who got infected and then suddenly recovered. Do you think the treatment is related to you and the newcomers? Hearing the correct assumption, Yi Hwan felt a crisis brewing. Stammering, he tried to deny the accusation and attributed the recovery to Dr. Han. But the weirdo was already convinced of his theory. He doesn't know how that woman was cured, but he's certain that Yi Hwan's team is responsible. Now they're just hiding the facts to avoid a panic. Crazy and observant. Too bad he's a weirdo. Yi Hwan didn't expect to be cornered with such sharp questions here. Knowing he couldn't get away with excuses, he tried to justify that they have a good reason to keep the facts a secret. Manhwa already has an idea of what happened. He figured that in the end, the captain made the call. Taejun makes those big decisions. He made the rules, and the people at the motel must follow them. They just stay quiet and obey. Manhwa is sick of living such a subservient life. As an act of liberation, he raised his automatic rifle and aimed it at Yi Hwan. With a safe distance between them, Yi Hwan couldn't force his way forward without inevitably being shot down. The bastard had finally lost his mind and now had the chance to act. Elsewhere on the 8th floor, a loud gunshot snapped them back to reality. Fearing something had happened to Yi Hwan, the captain and the reporter turned to run toward the noise. That's when they saw Manhwa, rifle on his back, holding the metal shutter. With a demented smile, he quickly brought the shutter down. A loud crash echoed through the section. Panicked, the captain slammed on the door while screaming at Manhwa to stop this madness. Then he heard a mocking voice telling him to stay put and enjoy the empty floor. The captain heard a click. The sound of a key securing the lock with a turn. Manhwa laughed and said that Taejun should be grateful he's only locking them up instead of doing something worse. The weirdo had already made an example of Yi Hwan, of what a madman can do. Face up on the floor, the hero was now bleeding from a gunshot wound to his abdomen. Back at the motel, it was time for the changing of the guard. The on-duty guard complained about the rain when it wasn't even the season for it. At this rate, not even the zombies could wander the streets. It seemed like the rain wasn't going to let up, so it's better to watch the entrance instead of walking the muddy perimeter. While checking his equipment, the next guard noticed that he didn't have a single bullet in his magazines. They hadn't shot at anything lately, so this was strange. The first guard realized he had been patrolling the area with an empty gun. That could have been dangerous. He usually checks the weapons before shifts, but today, Manhwa just handed him the rifle and assured him it was ready to go. They wondered if Manhwa had made a mistake. Unaware of what was happening at the abandoned hospital, the captain was still pounding on the metal door, trying to call out the bastard. Reporter Kim, on the other hand, was more worried about Iwan's safety. Manhwa raised his weapon and aimed it at the captain. The one he's holding is loaded. Unlike the captain's empty magazines, the scumbag holds all the power here. He could shoot them and leave, but he figures it's better to save bullets and let the captain and the reporter die in an empty prison. Of course, he didn't have much of a choice with that monster Yi-Hwan. One bullet was enough. Hearing the bastard talk about what he did to their dear friends drained all the strength from reporter Kim. This fool doesn't even realize what he's done. He just destroyed humanity's last hope. For some petty reason, the one way to end all the suffering and carnage disappeared. Seeing the reporter fall to his knees made Myungo smirk in amusement. He thinks this outcome is perfect. He's one of those guys who prefers the world to stay just as it is right now. He's an absolute lunatic. Trash. The captain and the reporter stared at the maniac in confusion. Myungo is pleased to have eliminated someone who would be a huge obstacle to his plans. With the death of humanity's hope will come despair. Finally, the lunatic headed for the exit, went down the stairs, and left. Unbeknownst to him, Yejuan's supposedly lifeless body began to tremble slightly. Blood began to flow freely from his mouth, clearing his airway. Gradually, he opened his eyes. A bloodthirsty glint had taken over from the stairs to the top floor. Sounds of clashing metal could be heard. The captain had been desperately trying to open the padlocked door for some time. Reporter Kim had already given up on the brute force method and asked Tae-yoon to stop trying so hard. He preferred to sit down, calm himself, and try to think of a solution. Meanwhile, the captain was blaming himself for what happened today. He should have realized what kind of snake was in their midst. He believes Yejuan's blood is on his hands because of this mistake. However, reporter Kim knows it's not the captain's fault. No one could have predicted this. That psycho hid himself well. The fact that he handed out unloaded guns indicates this trick was a well-thought-out plan. That guy even made the group leave the car keys behind for a quick getaway. Just in case, he made sure to create the perfect opportunity to carry out this betrayal. Just thinking about how that monster is about to return to the motel makes the captain's stomach churn. He's afraid his people are in danger, but that's all the more reason for them to stay calm. First, they need to find a way out of this prison safely. Finally, an epiphany struck the reporter as he remembered something tucked away in his coat. Reaching into his inner pocket, he cursed himself for not remembering it sooner. He almost forgot that the revolver Yejuan took from the thugs at the gas station was with him. He promised to explain how and when he got a gun in this gun-free country later. First, they need to break the lock. Reporter Kim lowered the gun and aimed at the padlock, asking the captain if he should shoot. He was so excited he almost got himself killed. Luckily, the captain reacted quickly and warned him about a possible ricochet. Just as they were about to step back for a safer shot, a shadow loomed over Kim. Yejuan is alive. The man is breathing, bleeding, panting, and wheezing. Reporter Kim stared into his friend's eyes, stunned. This guy looked different from the kind Yejuan he knew. The last thing the bloodied man remembered was standing in front of that bastard and getting shot without warning. As the betrayal sank in, a wave of rage washed over Yejuan. He grabbed the padlock, wrapped his fingers into the grooves, and shattered it with raw force. Without wasting any time, he headed for the exit. Reporter Kim tried to call out to him, but his mind was already distracted by another thought. With the door now open, the captain and the reporter followed the bloodthirsty demon. At the Moonlight Motel, the captain's worst fears came true. Every nearby guard had been mercilessly slaughtered inside. The perpetrator is enjoying every second of destroying the place he once called home. He delighted in watching the residents squirm and hide at the sound of the noise outside. Myungo doesn't care that they're hiding and cowering. These people have nowhere to run. Standing in the way of his rampage was Dr. Han. Using her body, she is shielding the survivors while confronting the lunatic. Crouching down, Myungo declared that he would impose new rules as he becomes the leader of the motel. With no captain or other guards to give orders, he took the opportunity to create his own paradise. The doctor heard his delusions and looked at him with utter contempt. Hearing the implication in Myungo's words, Dr. Han coldly asked what he did to Tae-yoon. Hearing her say, the captain's name triggered something in the loser. He slapped her hard across the face, annoyed that she only cares about Tae-yoon. She fell to the floor, and Su-yin quickly rushed to her side to check if she was okay. Myungo reached the peak of his fury, and spiraling out of control, demanded to know why everyone only cares about that bastard Tae-yoon, that captain. Everyone trusted the guy who shot his own men, and ran away. The lunatic just wanted to know why everyone follows Tae-yoon, and what makes that hateful man so much better than him. He now regrets not shooting that man just like he did with that mutant who's invisible to zombies, when he had the chance. Upon hearing her savior mentioned, Something clicked in Su Yin. She asked what that guy did to Ye Juan. He smirked, recognizing her as the girl from the new squad. The lunatic taunted Su Yin, saying she'd never see that weird mutant again. Spoiler alert, he was dead wrong. With no bike and no car, Kang Yejuan followed the trail of betrayal. In the rain, his abdomen, blood was still dripping from it. Despite the fatal wound, he kept walking, as if possessed. His eyes burned brightly, focused on catching the man who tried to kill him. All he saw was red, a blood-soaked world that only he could see. As he moved on autopilot, a wave of mixed emotions swelled in his chest, but his mind was incredibly numb. He remembered meeting Park Gina and saving her from that store. He could see the kind doctor and the people at the motel. He replayed the scene of the captain and the reporter trapped on the 8th floor. That damn Hamong Ho had the audacity to push him into this state, harming the people he cared about. Now, Kang Yuan's body was just moving on its own, and he couldn't consciously control it. On top of that, he feels so hungry and ravenous that he's losing his grip on reality. Behind him, a battalion of zombies had already formed. Back at the motel, the lunatic had taken the entire community hostage by force. With the gun in his hand, Hamong Ho confessed that at first, he didn't hate the captain. In fact, he tried to get along with the guy in his own way. He simply reached his limit and felt like he was being cornered. It got to a point where everything Taijun did irritated him. He's a true hater. Dr. Han slowly stood up and shattered the lunatic's delusions. She, more than anyone, knows how much Taijun trusted and cared for this traitor. They were the only men of the same age in the camp. The captain always looked after him like a brother. They didn't know if the Jia family was still alive or not. To think Taijun had wasted his care on this useless punk. Just when you thought he'd realize his mistakes, the scumbag smirked and admitted he already knew all that about the captain. But it was precisely because of that care that he hated the man with all his might. He felt like Taijun was acting as if he were some special figure in his life. If there's one thing he hates, it's being looked down on as if he were a child that needed to be taken care of. He hates how everyone fully accepted the guy, sincerely calling him captain. Dr. Han was speechless. She had never seen someone so insane. Su Jin, on the other hand, was angry for a simple reason. When you get right down to it, this damn bastard just ruined humanity's last chance. Hamong Ho is just an insect with an inferiority complex, a child who wants to be called captain. Su Jin didn't look at him with anger. She looked at him with the deepest disdain. Such a pathetic man isn't even worthy of anger. Being seen as worthless scum pushed all the right buttons to set him off even more. He grabbed Su Jin by the throat and asked if she was really ready to sign her death warrant right here and now. He pressed the barrel of the gun to her stomach and threatened to add another body to his kill count. One more sacrifice wouldn't be a problem. Still, the maniac was willing to let her live if she acted like an insect for him. Such a ridiculous order made Su Jin scoff in disgust. Though she appears to be a refined and proper lady, she is the daughter of an army colonel. She would never bow to someone as despicable as Hamong Ho. Besides, she had already died once. The fear of death had long since vanished from her mind. Su Jin would rather die a second time than submit to a coward, a pathetic wretch who would be nothing without a gun. Knowing his threats wouldn't work on her, Hamong Ho pushed the brave lady away. He could give her that second death she was talking about. He wants to reduce the number of mouths to feed. After dealing with these girls, he plans to shoot those useless, resource-consuming children. Perhaps this way, he'll feel a bit of peace. Just before he could shoot the survivors, he heard limping footsteps approaching. Finally, Kang Iwan finished his marathon and arrived to get his revenge. Upon seeing the bastard who tried to leave him for dead, his bloody vision grew even bloodier. Hamong Ho was as shocked as if he'd seen a ghost, which was understandable. Su Jin was also stunned by this turn of events. She thought he was dead. Without wasting a breath, Kang Iwan advanced. While the bastard's trigger finger trembled in fear, he was starting to question his sanity. He was sure he had landed a fatal shot earlier, but here the victim was, alive and standing. Instead of looking human, he looked like a predator. Driven by terror, the lunatic raised his automatic rifle and screamed unintelligibly, as if he'd forgotten how to form proper words. This time, he couldn't fire a single shot. With Dr. Han and Su Jin jumping in to pin both his arms, this insect couldn't even shake them off, not when his life was on the line. When he realized Kang Iwan was already in front of him, he nearly pissed himself in fear. With a swift movement, the mutant threw a punch that dislocated the lunatic's jaw, knocking several teeth loose. The ladies let him go just in time, allowing the scumbag to be sent flying like a rag doll. They secured the gun out of his reach. Hamion's plan to take over the motel had completely failed. With one punch, his already damaged face got even worse. Zoin felt relieved, but was somewhat mortified by the young man's strength. However, She lifted her head to look at him. She saw a man who seemed to be trying his absolute best to control himself. With his last conscious breath, Yi Huan asked Su Jin to take everyone and get off this floor. She was taken aback for a moment, but quickly recovered and did as he asked. With the survivors evacuated to the upper floors, only the mutant and the piece of trash were left. Yuan felt a strange calmness, noticing his heart slow down and relax. His mind slowly went blank. All the unnecessary noise faded away, and only one thought rose to the surface, repeating itself over and over again. He's so hungry, it borders on madness. If you're wondering where the captain and the reporter are, well, they're still stuck back at the hospital. According to their calculations, Iwan should have already reached the motel on foot by now. It only takes about an hour to get to the base camp, so he should have already caught up with them. However, the two of them were forced to take shelter inside. Who would have thought the infected would group up and surround the building so quickly? They have nowhere to go and must avoid being seen by the nasty undead. Until now, Taijun has been blaming himself for failing to see how, when, and why Mio became such a twisted individual. The guy wasn't exactly sociable, never talking much, but he didn't cause trouble or pick fights with others either. It was unthinkable that he had been planning something so cruel right from the start. Reporter Kim replied that in desperate and chaotic situations, people tend to show their hidden, true nature. Taijun isn't to blame for not seeing what kind of snake he was keeping in his house. Luckily, that snake is now toothless and bleeding from a blow to the head. Just as reporter Kim said, even people you trust can hide a side of themselves that no one knows about. Outside the motel, under the moonlight, a horde of the undead is slowly approaching. They must have been drawn in by the previous gunshots. Their footsteps were masked by the sound of the rain. The disgusting worm switched his authoritarian tone to a submissive one, begging Yi Huan to just listen to what he had to say first. He admitted his mistakes, assuring him that he never meant to do something so terrible to so many people. He just broke down from the stress. Can you believe that? Mio blamed his mental breakdown on the hellish situation they were all in. In a world where you never know if you'll get bitten or starve to death, it'd be crazier if anyone actually managed to stay sane. He insisted that people like him can only take so much pressure. While trying to shout his way out of trouble, he saw a wooden stick nearby and immediately grabbed it. Yuan, on the other hand, seemed to be in another universe, mentally speaking. Seeing that he was distracted, the insect looked for an opportunity to seize control. He gripped the wooden stick and charged at the distracted mutant with all the strength he had left. He swung hard, hitting Yuan in the temple and rattling his brain. Seeing the first blow land without any issue, he took it as an invitation to deliver more. After striking the dazed mutant several times, the worm made a mad dash to retrieve the rifle on the floor. Having succeeded, the lunatic, with his head now bleeding, ran for the doors. Yi Huan seemed to snap back to life. Mio had made it to the outskirts of the motel grounds. The rain made it even harder to run. This guy's stamina is absolutely horrible. He's only a few meters from where he started, and he's already out of breath. When he looked back, he saw Yi Huan had nearly caught up. The guy moves just like a horror movie villain. His eyes were locked on his target. After that brief mental lapse, he was finally focused. He knows he can't outrun a beast. Mio turned around, his gun ready to fire. He complained, saying he resented Yi Huan for being a mutant who wasn't afraid of being bitten to death. He whined that even though the world is in chaos, injustice still persists, and he's one of the unlucky ones who never gets a chance to get to the top. Talented people always stand out, while regular guys like him just remain nobodies until they die. Today, he wants to change that injustice. With the power of gunpowder, he fired at the slowly approaching Yi Huan, and the sound of gunfire echoed through the motel. The first bullet made the mutant falter, but he remained standing tall. Confident that he had this fight in the bag, the lunatic took a breath and confessed a little secret. He believes that since the old world was filled with inequality and injustice, he much prefers a world overrun by zombies. He actually likes it. While living and hiding at this remote hotel, he thought he would finally become someone noteworthy. But just like in the old world, people have only ignored his presence. Another thing he loves about this new world is the simple fact that nobody expects anything from him anymore. In this messed up world, no one will value him or judge him. No one will care about his academic background, his annual salary, or the type of car he drives. He's free from society's judgment based on material wealth. He doesn't care if the world was ruined by zombies. In fact, this world has always been full of zombies, conforming and participating in the rat race. In a dog-eat-dog world, nothing changed. Things just became more literal. While the wannabe Joker villain rambled on, Yi Huan watched in silence as his blood vision filter locked onto a succulent meal. The nagging thought he can't shake intensifies with every passing second. He's so hungry he could easily tear flesh apart. Myunjo had no idea someone was listening to his absurd rants about society. Taking aim again, he said he must eliminate the man who can cure zombies. He can't let some guy ruin his paradise, right? Unbeknownst to this fool, a horde of zombies was already in attack range after hearing his earlier gunshots. As he turned around, the rotting undead lunged through the downpour, eager to bite and feast. Pathetic man. He tried to defend himself with the gun, but his aim was terrible and his fingers were slow. The first zombie lunged forward to enjoy a chunk of his chest. Once he was knocked to the ground, the rest of the horde pounced to get their fill. Iwan kept moving forward, seemingly oblivious to the bloody feast in front of him. He looked feral. He unhinged his jaw in a terrifying way before devouring a piece of the man's head. He was completely entranced by the thought of having a decent human meal, and Mrs. Sujin saw everything. She watched from the upper floors of the motel as her savior shared a grim meal with a horde of the undead. Mrs. Choi Sujin stood in silence. Seeing her frozen by the window, Dr. Han-kun asked what was happening outside. Sujin didn't know what to say. After struggling to compose herself, she assured the doctor that everything would be all right. She silently closed the window and redirected Dr. Han's attention to helping the other survivors. Dr. Han was suspicious, but she went along with it. Time passed slowly, and the rain eventually subsided. Finally, the sky cleared, and the morning sun shone through. In stark contrast to the beautiful dawn, the ground in front of the motel was littered with blood and guts. The zombies that had gathered around had also calmed down after their late-night feast. Among them, Iwan silently contemplated what he had done. He looked up at the sun, his mouth and clothes stained with Myunjo's blood and entrails. Back at the death trap clinic, Captain Taijun and the journalist Kim Gi-do heard the rain stop. They could only pray for the safety of the people at the motel. The captain felt utterly helpless. He was sick of doing nothing, trapped in this empty building, and he blamed himself for not anticipating Myunjo's plan. If only he had been more vigilant, none of this would have happened. To take responsibility, he tried to find a way out. Even though they didn't have a vehicle or a usable weapon, going outside was practically a suicide mission. Captain Taijun argued that they would die anyway if they just sat around doing nothing, so they might as well try something. He's not worried about his own well-being, he just wants to save his people. Fortunately, a suicide mission wasn't necessary. When Yi Huan returned to pick them up, the captain almost pulled out his unloaded rifle in shock. Yi Huan had cleaned himself up and brought a car to get Kim Gi-do and the captain. He apologized for being a little late, but his journalist friend was more worried about Yi Huan. After all, they saw him get shot last night. Yi Huan brushed it off as a lucky break. He said he just lost consciousness from the shock, and there was nothing to worry about. Captain Taijun anxiously asked about the people at the motel and the killer. Without divulging the grisly details of what happened last night, Yi Huan simply told them they should head back first. The drive to the motel was quiet, but they arrived just in time for a solemn ceremony. The survivors of last night's attack gathered outside the motel, overlooking the mountains, to make graves for those who fell victim to one man's delusions. Kung Su was a kindergarten driver. He loved his children more than anything. Hung Sub was a delivery man who helped the sick and elderly. Both were kind-hearted people. That bastard Myunjo chose the kindest ones to eliminate. Still blaming himself for what happened, Captain Taijun couldn't even bring himself to look at the makeshift graves of his men. Even though they hadn't known the deceased for long, they had been together in the darkest of times. That has to mean something. They will be remembered for years to come. They'll be remembered for the kindness they showed the world and for the good in their hearts. After the ceremony, a heavy atmosphere filled the motel. As the day wore on grimly, Dr. Han asked him a question inside the doctor's office. He gave Yuan a packet of documents. In the packet was proof that his blood can treat the infected. In the future, they might find a reputable medical institution. The document would be a proper explanation of his condition, backed by some credibility. Still, they must proceed with care when discussing the topic of Yuan's condition. There are many people with bad intentions out there. Yuan doesn't need the advice. He's seen it with his own 2 eyes. The captain interrupted, asking if he really didn't remember coming back to the motel by himself. The only thing he knows for sure is that he walked all the way back. Other than that, his memory was a blur. He was in a dreamlike state all night. Dr. Han can't be sure what's causing this brief amnesia. One cause could be temporary memory loss from the shock of being shot. At the end of the night, Mio was attacked and devoured by the zombies that arrived with Yuan. He disappeared without a trace, apparently devoured down to the bone. Hearing the bloody description, Mrs. Suin glanced sideways at Yuan. Even now, one question lingers in everyone's mind. What made Mio react so violently last night? He seemed like a different person. His nasty nature is finally out in the open. Kim Yido said that Myongo's case wasn't an exception. In his days as a reporter, he saw many people without kindness, They were filled with evil thoughts and incapable of thinking about others. Today, you could say those people are even more dangerous than the infected. They often look like fellow survivors. Hearing this, the captain tightened the strap on his gun. He remembered Ji-won saying his group was heading to Yangyang. No matter which state road they use, they're all just like the highway, completely blocked. The only viable way is to cross the mountain on foot. If they choose that route, the captain warned Yuan to be careful of anyone wearing military uniforms. The reporter, Kim, was surprised to hear a soldier say to avoid other soldiers. He believed that running into the military would offer protection. That might be true at organized bases, but you have to avoid small groups of soldiers. Their uniforms don't always mean safety, but danger. Besides Captain Taijun, he knows other deserters who left their posts. There are also soldiers from a neighboring platoon who survived that bloody night. Due to an incident, they escaped by another route. If Yuan's group runs into those guys, they'd be a serious threat. The captain's worries seemed exaggerated, since the incident must have happened weeks ago. Of course, Taijun hopes he's just being paranoid. Still, he can't help but worry. That night, those bastards went to Yangyang after being forced to kill their own infected men. Captain Taijun fled with his team, not daring to look back. He told himself he had to calm down. That was the only thought on his mind. Taijun went to the tactical command center, hesitating, not reporting what had happened. That's when he saw the neighboring platoon pointing a gun at a civilian. It looked like they were having a great time. Taijun approached and asked what the third platoon was doing. The de facto leader of the third platoon was shocked to see the exasperated captain of the second platoon alive. Being so by the book, Taijun demanded answers for this alarming scene. The grunts didn't know what to say, their adrenaline still high after killing their own troops. Captain Taijun erupted with frustrated questions. One of the soldiers, Jo Minin, pointed his gun at the captain's temple. At this point, ranks no longer matter. No one's in charge, and everything's in chaos. Taijun's anger rose to another level. The company has been nearly wiped out, and these idiots are pointing a gun at a civilian. This isn't something a sane person would do. Yoon could say the same thing about killing his own men and being the sole survivor of a platoon. Taijun was stunned by that response. In a way, he is a mass murderer and a deserter. Ying Yijun's words stung. He can't act all high and mighty here. In the end, they're just stealing a civilian's car to escape this hell in the woods. Their sins don't compare to someone who slaughtered his own comrades. As they were talking at gunpoint, a horde of zombies came stumbling out of the forest. Looking closer, every single one of the undead was wearing a military uniform. From their insignia, they had to be from the tactical command unit. That meant the battalion headquarters had already fallen. Jo Minin took advantage of the captain's distraction and hit him with the butt of his rifle. Taijun fell unconscious. Jo Minin had already wasted enough time, so he ordered his lackeys to get in the car. They obeyed quickly, but the rookie was lagging behind. The rookie wondered what would happen to the civilian whose car they took if they just ran. Jo Minin laughed and walked over to the uneasy rookie. To save time, he shot the civilian in the head. Captain Taijun, still reeling from the pain of the attack, shocked, he watched helplessly. This is a message from the corporal for those who don't know how to follow orders after killing an innocent person. Minjun's carefree smile returned, and he asked the rookie to get in the car one last time. Seeing the body with a bullet in its head, he complied. One of the lackeys asked the corporal if they were really going to leave the captain behind. Minjun calmly explained that Taejun was left alive on purpose. That way, the captain can buy them time while the zombies have their meal. With that, the third platoon drove off. Moments later, Taejun recovered enough to sit up. By then, the horde of zombies was just a few feet away. Terrified, he clutched his gun to his chest. It was a repeat of what happened with his platoon. Captain Taejun was terrified. Desperate to survive, he fired again. That was the whole story of that night. He can't be certain if the second platoon went to Yangang, but it's highly likely they did. Since then, most of the main roads have become unusable. It hasn't been easy getting far in a four-wheeled vehicle. That being the case, they probably stuck to their plan. Yuan thanked the captain for the heads up. Still, they can't afford any more delays. He wants to find his family soon, before it's too late. At the motel, Captain Taejun was standing watch alone on the outer wall. He was admiring the night sky when the doctor showed up. It had been a difficult day, and she wanted him to get some well-deserved rest. But going back inside would be pointless, since he can't sleep anyway. The other survivors are doing better. The children are still a bit anxious, but things have generally calmed down to a manageable level. Seeing the look on his face, Dr. Han instantly understood what was tormenting the captain. She took his hand and told him to stop blaming himself for the actions of a madman. People always have another side they hide. It's not something you can just see. Instead of wallowing in painful memories, it's better to remember the sincere side of people, even after they're gone. The doctor's words gave the captain the comfort he so desperately needed. My brother really snagged the best girl in the apocalypse. Watching them from a distance, Jaejuan was lost in deep thought. The truth is, he hadn't forgotten about last night. He could still taste Myungo's blood in his mouth. The doctor spoke of the other side people hide. How long could he hide his? By morning, the car was loaded with boxed supplies and water. Yuan's crew was about to head out. Captain Taejun wanted them to take a gun for safety, just in case. But Jaejuan refused. He argued that they were heading to Zhangyang, not into a fight. It's better to keep the weapons where there are people who need protecting. The captain relented and gave him a map with the best route to Yangyang marked on it. It's not the most accurate, but it should help. Taejun thought about the group's short stay. They'd been a big help around camp, and he felt bad that he couldn't do more to repay them. All he could offer was a firm handshake, a prayer, and his best wishes for their journey. Yuan thanked him for the kind words. Dr. Han also prepared a comprehensive medical kit for the group. She's the best. Yuan paused for a moment to look back at the motel one last time and saw a child waving goodbye with a smile. It reminded him of his sister. This only strengthened his resolve to reach his destination quickly. He returned the wave with a smile, then turned to the captain, the doctor, and the other survivors who came to see them off. Kang Iwan thanked the community of survivors for giving them safe shelter on such short notice. The chapter at the motel had come to a close, and it was time to start a new one. Dr. Han asked if the captain was sure he wanted to stay behind. If he had gone with those three, he might have had the chance to return to the army and right his wrongs. He assured Han So-yoon that he wasn't going anywhere, not now that he had found his home. As the new couple shared a tender moment holding hands, Yuan's group was already well on their way. He led the way on his cool motorcycle, with the other two following close behind, making sure to stick to the route the captain had mapped out. When the sun set, they chose an abandoned house to camp in. After a hearty meal, they slept soundly. They took turns keeping watch. At dawn, they were back on the road immediately. Everything was going smoothly until they hit their first obstacle, a long, dark tunnel filled with unknown dangers. Once they crossed this final stretch, they'll finally arrive in Yangyang. Thanks to Taejun's map, they'd made it this far without much trouble. This tunnel, as creepy as it was the only way forward. With no other option, Jaejuan decided to wing it. As usual, he would go on ahead while the car followed from behind. Full of determination, they entered the dark passage. Unbeknownst to them, something was lurking inside one of the abandoned trucks near the entrance. The first few minutes inside the tunnel passed without incident. Yuan was getting closer and closer to his family. Then, he saw something and slammed on his brakes. Up ahead, the tunnel was blocked. The path was blocked by two large public buses. From one of them, a man in a military uniform stepped out, a cigarette in his mouth, and an expectant look on his face. It was Corporal Ying Jun, the fool from the 2nd platoon, and the man Tai-hoon had warned the group about. He was glad to finally catch some promising loot. He kept running into useless nobodies in this damn tunnel. Maybe the heavens hadn't forgotten him after all. Judging by the position of the buses, it seemed this scumbag blocked the tunnel on purpose. Yuan tried to stay calm at first, and quietly asked them to let his group pass. Corporal Ying Jun looked at him like he was some amusing fool. He told Yuan to pass if he could. Then, a truck came speeding up from behind. The driver slammed on the brakes, letting the vehicle skid to a stop to block their way back into the tunnel. In the driver's seat was the private who saw them when they decided to risk the unknown. He looked pleased, seeing that the trio was still acting clueless. The corporal thought this group had it easy. He had to make it clear that from now on, they were just prisoners. To drive the point home, the other privates peeked out from the bus windows with their weapons ready. It was an effective trap that accounted for all possibilities. With the threat of guns, even a fool should understand what was happening. Yuan's group had to surrender and was taken to a nearby abandoned warehouse. They must have regretted not taking Tai-hoon's weapon. Now, they were tied up in a damp room. They were treated like trash and couldn't make any demands. Before leaving, a soldier promised Miss Sujin that she would be treated differently. She has a decent face, and there's no need to ruin it. Tomorrow, they'll show her what harsh treatment really is. Once the metal door was shut, Kim Gi-doo vented about the corrupt soldiers. He boasted that without weapons, those bastards would be no match for his boy, Yuan. The insignias on those guys' uniforms matched those of the same 3rd Division as Tai-hoon. That confirms the worst-case scenario. From the looks of it, they'll be left alone tonight. If they put their minds to it, the three of them should be able to come up with an escape plan. The problem is, their car and motorcycle were confiscated. If they escape on foot, they won't last long without supplies. Miss Sujin is afraid the soldiers will find out about Yuan's condition. When she came in, she noticed a radio was on. Those thugs might have heard Pyong's broadcast. Either way, they have to keep their mouths shut about it. There's no telling what those guys would do if they found out about Yuan's immunity. Kim Gi-doo's warning to the group was overheard by the other prisoners in the damp room. They spoke openly without checking their surroundings. The prisoner asked directly if the young man was really invisible to zombies. Kim Gi-doo realized his mistake and didn't dare say another word. The prisoner introduced himself as Kim Yang-hoon. Just like the trio, he was captured by those corrupt soldiers 5 days ago. Those idiots have pretty much changed their job to people hunters. Still, the soldiers had a reason to keep Mr. Kim Yang-hoon alive. He was a doctor. Those scumbags thought it would be useful to have a living first aid kit in their prison. They take Dr. Kim out when they need something and keep him tied up and locked away the rest of the time. Kim Gi-doo had seen prisoner of war camps, and the conditions here are similar. Getting back to the topic. Doctor, Kim asked if there was anyone in the group who hadn't been bitten by zombies. The group didn't dare leak any more than they already had. The imprisoned doctor assured them there was no need to worry about the information getting out. He just wanted to confirm something. Doctor, Kim Yang-hoon dropped a bombshell, confessing that he was part of a team that might have started this whole thing. If someone is immune to this disease, they might have been directly involved in its creation. Outside the prison, the soldiers had just finished unloading and taking inventory of today's haul. They thought they'd only find packets of ramen, but they found a huge stash of supplies. It's a full inventory that should last them for at least 1 week. In a celebration room, a rookie was feeling bad about his actions. The dictatorial corporal saw him and shook him. He asked if the weakling was feeling guilty again. If so, there's a simple solution to turn a coward into a man. They could let him be the first one with the girl they just locked up. Yingjun presented the disgusting proposal as if it were a golden opportunity. He believes that if the rookie gets a taste, he might finally overcome his weak heart. The privates agreed with the plan and urged the rookie to accept and say thank you. As for the 2 useless guys who came with the girl, they can be fed to that thing the soldiers have locked up in another damp room. It was about time to feed that carnivorous zombie pet. Back in the smelly dungeon, the group couldn't believe what they were hearing. Dr. Kamen basically confessed to being one of the people responsible for this apocalyptic scenario, and the one who indirectly made Yi Huan immune. He immediately clarified that he was once part of the clandestine project, but he had cut ties with the lunatic mastermind a long time ago. Kim Guido's journalistic instinct kicked in, and he asked for more details about this supposed secret project. If Dr. Kim had to describe it briefly, it would be the twisted experiment of a madman, born from pure insanity. The project was led by Dr. Shin, a brilliant pathologist and respected doctor. Back then, his colleagues admired him, and Dr. Kim considered it an honor to be on the team. Over time, he discovered the horrible truth. The project's true goal was to create a new breakthrough for humanity, a life free from disease, with enhanced abilities, pushed to the absolute limit. In short, they were working on a plan to elevate the human body to a godlike level. The way the imprisoned doctor put it, it sounded like a cult. However, Dr. Kim claimed it was a medical project based on science. Although, to be fair, you can't blame anyone for thinking it was some kind of cult. That was the reason more people left the project over time. Dr. Shin had lost his mind. They began to experiment on actual humans. They would inject newly designed viruses into patients on the brink of death, and they would monitor them to see if they came back to life. The ethical and moral violations alone were deplorable. If that virus ever leaked, the consequences would be dire. And that's exactly what happened. It's possible that the perfect, godlike product the project was trying to create is Kang Iwan. Outside, Corporal Yeoman Jun checks the medical kit the group received. They even got a medical cooler that's a pretty good haul. Opening the cooler, he found vials of blood. Back in the prison, the gang is still struggling to process what they just heard. Dr. Kim can't be sure, but the most likely explanation for this chaos is a virus leak from the lab where he used to work. Everything is happening just as the former members predicted when they warned the mad Dr. Shin about the project's risks. If that's true, then how did Yi Huan get involved? Dr. Kim asked if he had ever been to the June Hospital in Incheon. Hearing the name of the hospital, which was one of the first sites of the outbreak, a shiver ran down Yi Huan's spine. He was there for work before everything went to hell. It might look like a normal hospital from the outside, but it was the project's main headquarters. If Yi Huan had been in that place, the virus must have mutated him. Knowing that one of the people responsible for his misery was standing right in front of him, Yi Huan furiously asked Dr. Kim if he was looking for a lost lab rat. Even his friend Kim Guido was frightened by the murderous intent he unleashed. Just the thought of all the people who died because of some damn experiment made his stomach turn. So many families torn apart, lives destroyed, everything lost. Those who survived turned into monsters, hunting others. How could he stay calm in front of someone who created a living hell? Yihuan's rage exploded. He unleashed a force that shattered his restraints. He couldn't just stand by while some asshole who played with human lives was asking for cooperation. Dr. Kim bowed his head and admitted his mistakes. He had no excuses. He took full responsibility for this biblical disaster. The reason he needed to confirm Yihuan's immunity was for the sake of everyone still fighting to survive. He wants to understand why Yihuan is immune. The special key lies in his DNA. Kang Iwan could be the last hope in this dark world. All Kim Guido heard was a suggestion that for the greater good, his friend should be willing to become a guinea pig all over again. Dr. Kim explained that he just wanted Yihuan to provide antibodies for research, to perhaps create and mass-produce a cure. If they can properly convince their captors, they can get out of here and help save the world. Yihuan was silent for a moment. Then he asked, and what if his antibodies make everything worse for everyone? He was worried about turning people into something like him. The confrontation came to a halt when the cell door swung open. The rookie walked in, his weapon raised. He saw that one of the prisoners had broken free from his restraints. If his superiors found out, things would get ugly, fast. But the rookie assured them that they didn't need to be on guard right now. He didn't come here to hurt anyone. His superiors ordered him to do bad things, but he doesn't want to. The truth is, he came to ask for help. He's going to free everyone, including himself. Kim Guido didn't buy it for a second. He couldn't trust one of their captors. The rookie explained that he was just following orders, terrified of what might happen to him if he didn't. He's a prisoner to his superiors, just without the restraints. Mrs. Sujin didn't let her guard down, but Dr. Kim trusted the rookie. He's been here for 5 days, and he knows the rookie is harmless. He's never mistreated the prisoners or been violent. Everyone just wants to escape this damned place once and for all. Still, Kim Guido can't risk his life with the enemy. For all they know, this is just a trap. But whether they like it or not, they have no other choice but to make a decision. Tomorrow at dawn, the men captured today will be executed. It seems they're prisoners of war now. Dr. Kim asked Hangyol, the rookie, if that execution would include the girl. The rookie explained regretfully that at dawn, the men would be thrown to the zombies chained up behind the building. As for Dr. Kim's infected wife, this disorderly platoon has been running this twisted operation for a while now. They captured a businessman and constantly roughed him up before deciding to end his life. Jo Min-jun admitted that he did these foolish things because he was bored. There's nothing to do out here in the mountains, and he was dying of boredom. Then something fun came along, and he couldn't resist having a little mischievous fun. Unlike the doctor in his cell, the businessman isn't useful to the group, so he might as well be zombie food. Then Hangyol, the rookie, tried to speak up about how inhumane this was. The corporal took offense that a subordinate questioned his hobby. Still, Hangyol insisted. Taking things to survive is one thing, but killing for fun is a line that shouldn't be crossed. If they do this, they're no different from those brainless monsters roaming the earth. The corporal spat and cursed the rookie's soft heart. As a responsible superior, he wanted to teach a lesson to the youngest member of the platoon. He said that to survive in a world of monsters, you have to be a worse beast. If you can become worse than a zombie, you'll no longer fear those brainless infected. While holding the rookie back, Jo Min-jun ordered his lackeys to throw the businessman over the edge. They carried out the order, and the chained-up zombie pounced on the poor guy. He screamed and struggled, trying to escape, but it was useless. After hearing Hangyol's account of what those devils were capable of, the prisoners were in shock. Those guys in military uniforms are crazier than they thought. The rookie can't stand being under the control of those lunatics. He doesn't want to be dragged down any further. He's already done so many bad things against his will. Dr. Kim confirmed the story. According to him, those bastards have his infected wife chained up. They use her as a disposal system for captured prisoners. And Jo Min-jun uses this place like it's his own personal horror-themed amusement park. Yihuan then asked Hangyol what they could do. The area is surrounded by mountains. Escaping on foot is almost impossible. They'll need the car. Luckily, his demonic superiors are slobs and left the car keys in the common room. Hangyol can grab them without being seen. Tomorrow morning, during lunchtime, he'll make his move and take down his superiors. It's a bold and straightforward plan. It's hard to know if he can take on 3 armed soldiers by himself. But the rookie insisted he only needed to subdue one of them, the head of the snake, Corporal Jo Min-jun. If they take him out, the others will follow. Yihuan wanted to know why the rookie was going to such lengths. He could easily escape on his own. Unlike them, nothing is keeping him here. In the end, his answer was clear and direct. He wants to do the right thing for once in his life. Miss Sujin suggested leaving immediately while the others were asleep. The rookie had already thought of that, but the sound of the engine starting would draw attention. It's too risky. As they were talking about escaping, that same damned corporal walked in. He was disappointed to see the rookie hadn't gotten started with the girl yet. He left the door open and told the 3 captured prisoners to follow him. Of course, they all hesitated to follow the bastard wherever he was trying to take them. Then, the corporal noticed that one of the prisoners was free from their bindings. Instead of being alarmed, he found it convenient and figured the rookie had cut the ropes. Jo Min-jun told the rookie to do the same with the others, so it would be easier to move around. After arriving at the main warehouse, the corporal sounded strangely friendly. He offered them comfortable beds to rest and was being nice. Miss Sujin was the first to ask what was going on. The corporal insisted that he's not a bad guy, he was just being cautious with strangers. Before explaining his change of heart, Min-jun asked the rookie to leave first. Hangyeol tried to stay, but the corporal insisted that he leave. The rookie had no choice but to obey, so he wouldn't raise suspicion. Getting back to the matter at hand, the corporal used a casual, carefree tone. Kim Gi-do and the others saw through the lies, so he told the bastard to get to the point. With no one else around to see this farce, he should just reveal the real purpose for this sudden change. The corporal appreciated how perceptive the journalist was becoming. Getting straight to the point, Corporal Jo Min-jun knows about the zombie immunity. Back at the hotel, the zombie mom that Kang Iwan cured is improving a lot. She's now eating normal food, thanks to Dr. Han's care. The humble doctor gave all the credit to Yihwan and his magical blood. The former zombie mom regrets not saying a proper goodbye to her savior. She could only hope for his safety. As the consultation ended, her daughter burst into the infirmary with a drawing she was incredibly proud of. The former zombie mom is now just a mom. After the last patient left, Captain Taeyun came in to check on the doctor. He noticed something was troubling her more than usual today. She's worried about Kang Yuan's group and their trip to Jiang. She thinks the letter of recommendation she wrote might end up in the wrong hands and cause more harm than good. The captain reassured her that even if that happens, Kang Yuan can take care of everyone. In his eyes, Dr. Han fulfilled her duty as a doctor, and that letter will be a great help. Unbeknownst to them, her worst fears were coming true. Corporal Jo Min-jun was going through his loot and found some files. They were filled with complex terms beyond his understanding, so he ignored them at first. But then he saw something that caught his interest. He noted the details of how one of these 3 is nearly invisible to zombies. Furthermore, that person's blood is a valuable cure that can reverse an infection. It describes the savior of the world. The corporal can't just leave someone so crucial tied up in a damp warehouse. This explains why his attitude changed completely. As for his demands, they won't be anything too outrageous. If someone is going to be the savior of humanity, he'd like to take care of them and share some of the benefits. In the future, if the world's liberator emerges, they will surely be worshipped like a god. There's a lot of glory to be gained, and the corporal wants to enjoy a piece of it. His greed can't hide the threat behind those words. It's either cooperate or die. Kang Yuan then asked, why did the corporal make his subordinate leave before sharing what he found? Jo Min-jun was cagey about his plan. It's obvious. There's no need to split the rewards with more mouths. The fewer mouths to feed, the bigger the spoils. Before he could spout any more nonsense, Kang Yuan dismissed his ramblings. This fool practically confessed that he's only pretending to treat the 3 prisoners well. Once he finds out who's immune to the undead, he'll say goodbye to the other 2. The corporal laughed. He was very careless with his words. This guy treats human lives as if they don't matter. How can anyone team up with someone so inhumane and treacherous? Surprisingly, Kang Yuan didn't lose his cool. After all, he has plenty of time to figure out what to do next. Maybe they could talk some more tomorrow. But for now, his former prisoners turned guests should get some rest. The corporal might have all the time in the world to break his captives. But Kang Yuan doesn't have that luxury. His family must be out there, and he has to escape from here at all costs. After the devil left, the group was given instant noodles to soothe their hunger. They're in a situation perhaps worse than when they were just regular prisoners. Who would have thought that Dr. Han's letter would put them in such a precarious position? Now, their only way out might be with the rookie's help. They have to take a risk and trust that the kid has good intentions. Kim Yu is skeptical, and you can't blame him for having trust issues. Nevertheless, they must find a way forward. Speaking of which, the rookie came to the door to check on the group. Private CO Hanal said it's his turn on guard duty, so he can talk from outside. Knowing the door was guarded in shifts just showed that the evil corporal is watching. The rookie wanted to come in and talk face to face, but the door was locked, and the corporal had the only key. First, Hanal wanted to apologize for how things are going. He swore on his mother that he isn't trying to deceive them. Kang Yuan found himself trusting the young man's words a little, and he asked if he'd heard anything else by chance. Well, the corporal announced that they are leaving this warehouse for good tomorrow. The veterans are already packing and loading up everything useful. It seems Corporal Jo Minan is excited to go to Seoul. Kim Yu figured the idiot corporal must be planning to sell the immunity to the government or the army, and the first place they could think of was the capital. The rookie started talking dramatically about how terrifying the corporal was, how he would manipulate and then discard others without a second thought. Whatever that corporal said, Hanel urged the gang not to believe a single word of it. Kang Iwan wasn't planning on it from the start. The guy wants something only he can provide, so they have all the negotiating power. When morning came, the corporal checked on his unwelcome guests and was met with conditions for cooperation. Now he regrets feeding the fish he had already caught. He showed a little fake kindness, and now his prisoners think they're in charge or something. He tried reverting to threats, but Kang Yuan didn't budge. He calmly asked if the fool knew how the vial of blood in the fridge worked. The idiot only read a piece of paper. There are no procedures or precautions on it. Kang Yuan advised the devil to go get the syringe and proper equipment for drawing blood. Consider before using his weapon. Jo Minjun mulled over Yi Huan's words for a moment. Kim Gidu was afraid that using precautions as a bargaining chip could backfire on them. Yi Huan was practically bluffing. Still, if the corporal falls for the trap, that's all that matters. Luckily, the bald devil took the bait. He admitted that carelessness could be a problem, so he asked directly about the conditions Yi Huan was proposing. First, the corporal must guarantee the safety of the group of 3. Jo Minjun gave a sly smirk and agreed. Second, if there's a plan to move and contact the government or the army, Yi Huan gets to choose the destination. The corporal argued that the natural destination for that would be the capital, Seoul. But Yi Huan asserted that there is simply nothing left in Seoul. It has become a metropolis of blood and chaos. The government and the army were overwhelmed and retreated long ago. Seoul is the last place you'd want to visit now. Unless you want to play your apocalyptic life on hard mode, it's better to go somewhere else. Unlike those criminal deserters hiding in the mountains, Yi Huan's crew has access to real intel and the best leads. The explanation made sense, so the corporal agreed. Now they're all in this together. As for the third condition, Yi Huan wants to use a vial of blood on the infected person locked in the filthy latrine. The corporal asked the punk why he was trying to cure a zombie. He refused to answer. Whatever the reason, this third condition wasn't a big ask. More importantly, it was a chance to verify the blood's healing properties. Jo Minjun admitted that he's trying to devise a method to run a verification test. Seeing an opening with each demand, he accepted Yi Huan's terms. It worked. The leader returned to his group, but the corporal couldn't be trusted to keep his promises. Fortunately, they have the rookie as an insurance policy. Without wasting any more time, the soldiers and the prisoners arrived at the testing site. The doctor's infected wife, Kim, growled and roared at the sight of living flesh. Naturally, Yi Huan volunteered to administer the vial of blood. The privates followed their orders to go to the shed, but they were confused as to why. The corporal told them to just shut up and watch. They were about to witness something historic, a major turning point in human history. Yi Huan slowly and fearlessly approached the writhing zombie. When he was just a few feet away, the corporal stopped him. "No need to rush," he said. "The entire audience hasn't arrived yet." It was then that Dr. Kim was dragged out of his enclosure to observe. The corporal got a kick out of watching a husband witness his wife suffering. Jo Minjun said he was going to great lengths to arrange such a touching reunion that it deserved a thank you at the very least. This cruel stunt enraged Yi Huan, but he couldn't show his claws just yet. He glanced at the rookie, who looked determined, and gave a slight nod to proceed with the plan. Yi Huan tightened his grip on the vial of blood and took another step toward the undead woman. The foot soldiers and the rookie were shocked to see the newly captured prisoner approaching a zombie unarmed. According to Hangyol, this was not part of the escape plan they had devised. Yi Huan had walked close enough to the zombie's bloody mouth. He steadied Mrs. Kim with a gentle pat and wasn't immediately attacked. Those who didn't know what was happening were left gaping in astonishment. Yi Huan silently acknowledged the woman's suffering and promised that she would soon awaken from this nightmare. He carefully fed her the blood from the vial, making sure to give her every last drop. "Doctor." Kim watched and prayed while the corporal waited for his verification. The undead woman reacted to the blood immediately. Her aggression vanished. A second later, her body went limp, and she collapsed to the ground. Ignoring the armed guards, Doctor, Kim rushed toward the puddle of blood where the love of his life now lay. He desperately called out her name, Higuan. "Doctor." Kim held his breath when he noticed movement. She opened her mouth and asked for water in a hoarse voice. Hearing his infected wife speak coherently struck the doctor like a whip. He turned to the stunned soldiers and demanded water for his wife, who was showing signs of dehydration. The soldiers were frozen in place. The same went for Jingyan. It was incredible to see the cure work right before their eyes. Regaining his composure, the corporal ordered his 2 subordinates to follow the doctor's instructions and bring some water. The soldiers muttered amongst themselves, but they followed their boss's orders as soon as he turned his back. Zhou Minjun smirked maliciously. Yi Huan was the only one who sensed the pure evil radiating from him. Taking control, the corporal raised his automatic rifle and gunned down his two subordinates, riddling them with bullets. Everyone instinctively ducked at the brutal sound. The rookie's knees gave out and he collapsed. His finger on the trigger trembled with fear and shock. Then he heard the corporal ask if he was scared by the massacre, and Zhou Minjun assured the youngest subordinate that he would avoid such a bloody fate. Of course, that's only if he continues to obey orders, like a good, gutless boy. It's one thing to hear Minjun talk about killing his subordinates, but seeing him do it without even blinking was deeply unsettling. Yi Huan couldn't just stand by and confronted the bastard for being so cruel. Minjun always insisted that he was just thinning the herd to have fewer mouths to feed. They're preparing for a long journey. To make the cure count, they have to conserve supplies. He then assured the gang that he would keep his promise to keep the three of them safe. Yi Huan almost jumped into fight, but that's when the rookie gathered his courage, stood up, and pressed the barrel of his gun against the back of the demon's neck. Private Seo Hangyeol looked ready to fire at any moment. He'd rather be eaten by zombies than keep taking orders from him. Instead of fearing for his life, the corporal took the threat as an amusing challenge. At first, he tried using his seniority to intimidate the rookie. Then he reiterated his promise to always keep his precious young subordinates safe. If he wants to roll with Yi Huan's crew, trust is going to be key from now on. That's why he can't join their group. He just wants someone to watch his back. He chose the rookie for that role. He asked Hangyeol if their days together hadn't built any mutual trust. Of course not. From the very beginning, Hangyeol knew that the corporal only keeps disposable people around him. As long as they're useful, Minjun deserves respect. He's a selfish bastard who uses and kills people without a second thought, a raving psychopath, worse than the undead. When all else failed, the corporal brought up the rookie's dead parents, threatening him with another reunion. It was a successful taunt, leading Hangyeol to strike the corporal with the butt of his gun. He kept stomping on the unconscious monster for daring to insult his parents. The rookie would have stomped him to death, but Yi Huan intervened. He insisted that they don't have to become a monster like the corporal. They should take care of the doctor's wife first. As for the unconscious corporal, they just tossed him inside the warehouse without tying him up or putting a bullet between his eyes. A real clever move. For the sake of plot and drama, they left the main villain completely unguarded. Of course, the bastard stirred and woke up the moment they turned their backs. At least they took the guns and loaded them into the car. As for Mrs. Kim, her dehydration has improved a bit. Her husband is watching over her, so she should be fine. The group has grown. Luckily, they have several cars now. With the supplies packed from last night, they should be able to leave right away. Of course, Yi Huan is now blaming himself for the deaths of those despicable soldiers. Mrs. Sujin is the only one talking any sense. She tried to make him see that he doesn't have to carry the weight of every death around him. Kim Gi-do understands his friend, but this is one of those cases where being too good is a problem in itself. Besides, that kindness problem was doubled by having another good guy in the group, Private Seo Hangjol. Kim Gi-do went over to the rookie and comforted him for the loss of his comrades. Even though those guys were a disaster, he just wants to get out of this warehouse as soon as possible. Kim Gi-do invited the rookie to join their crew, and he gratefully accepted. As they were chatting, the most obvious thing happened. The poor rookie was shot in the shoulder, falling to the ground as the sound of the gunshot caught everyone's attention. They confiscated the rifles but didn't even bother to search the unhinged corporal. He had a revolver hidden, God knows where. He's rarely used a handgun, so he only managed to graze the rookie he saw as a traitor. He was aiming for the head, but no one saw the gun in the demon's hand until it was too late. Yi Huan recognized it as the revolver from his car. The corporal must have taken it the night they were captured. The gang was that foolish, and Minjun had been planning to lay low until they left, but he had the other vial of blood in his pocket. So he said to hell with it and did something reckless. Yes, he drank Yi Huan's magic blood. He figured it would give him the same immunity if he couldn't escort the savior of humanity himself. He could have waited for the soft-hearted fools to leave before enjoying his power-up, but he got hungry. He couldn't hold back. His soulless eyes now held something more ravenous and greedy. It was something only Yi Huan could recognize in Corporal Minjun's blood. A drastic change is starting now. Yi Huan must face the consequences of being a foolish protagonist and creating an overpowered villain. As the others were leaving, he advised his companions to drive fast and far away, to a place where he couldn't follow them. Kim Gi-do helped the rookie get away, but the kid refused to leave without Yi Huan. Mrs. Sujin understood why Yi Huan was telling them to go and not look back. She had recently seen him tear into another man's flesh like a mindless zombie. For now, she's on board with following Yi Huan's instructions. Her priority is getting Hangyeol to Dr. Kim quickly. Before they could get far, Minjun raised his revolver, aiming at their backs, as they were leaving. Fortunately, Yi Hwan reacted quickly, and landed a blow that knocked the gun from his hand. Knowing the demon was starting to transform, he stopped, holding back his strength. The corporal maliciously announced his hunger, just like Yi Hwan. The doctor waited near the cars after hearing the gunshots. As soon as he saw the three of them limping over with an injured Hangul, he went into emergency triage mode. He called for the medical kit, and Kim Gi-do quickly searched through the supplies. He still doesn't know what his comrade is trying to do by confronting the corporal, who got up easily after taking a solid hit to the jaw. He even had time to pull out a cigarette, light it, and build up his aura in the middle of the fight. Slowly but surely, the effects of the blood vial are spreading through his system. He's no longer satisfied with taking people out with a gun. It's too fast, too easy, and no fun. After one drag, he tossed the perfectly good cigarette aside, landing it near some loose oil barrels for dramatic effect. Now he's ready to face the savior, eager to tear him apart piece by piece for maximum satisfaction. While he was giving his evil monologue, Yi Hwan was preparing another direct hit. In response, the corporal counterattacked on reflex, and they both narrowly missed. He then followed up with a swift kick to the stomach, sending Yi Hwan sliding backward. They stared at each other for a moment, thinking they looked tough. The cigarette touched the oil on the ground and ignited the battlefield for maximum aura. To get into the spirit of the battlefield, the corporal took off his uniform. He had an idea. Since they are the only two people immune to zombies, they are practically of the same breed. If word got out, the world would praise them, even worship them. They could be gods. On second thought, a savior is worth more when there's only one, not two. That idea motivated the demon to try harder and attempt to murder his competition. His blows were making Yi Hwan crack the ground with sheer force. It was like they were in a different comic. Mr. Moral Mac fought back and threw him into the fire, but a few burns won't stop a relentless demon. Now, the two fighters are just trading blows one for one. They used fists, headbutts, and every limb to inflict damage. As soon as Yi Hwan landed a good hit, he didn't stop. He jumped on the corporal's chest and started wailing on him like an MMA fighter with a blind referee. While they were having their final showdown, the warehouse was burning, and the fire grew so large it could be seen from outside. The doctor pointed out that the place is full of waste oil and flammable chemicals. It's only a matter of time before everything turns to ash. Kim Gi-do couldn't stand waiting around and doing nothing. He grabbed a weapon and prepared to head back into the burning structure. Before he got far, Mrs. Sujin told him not to go, and to stop trying to be a hero. She stood her ground and told the reporter to follow Yi Hwan's wishes and not interfere. When that boy told them to run to a place where he couldn't follow, he wasn't being dramatic. Yi Hwan is trying to protect the group from his own insatiable self. At this point, the corporal had cast aside his military duty and his humanity. Now he's just a man trying to defeat his only competition for the title of the new god of this apocalyptic hellscape. He thought Yi Hwan was strong, but now it's a one-sided beatdown. Still, our protagonist has some fight left in him. He could throw punches worthy of Dragon Ball Z. However, the corporal was just getting sadomasochistic pleasure from being hit and hitting back. While throwing punches, he thanked his superior for giving him the blood that would change everything. The corporal was enjoying himself as the warehouse was engulfed in flames, especially since Yi Hwan is his superior officer. In terms of immunity, this fight could be considered insubordination, but who cares? He already betrayed a whole battalion. What's one more? He lifted Yi Hwan by the neck, dominating the fight. Funnily enough, the hungrier he gets, the harder it is for him to control his strength. He told Yi Hwan he's not going to the afterlife just yet. For some reason, he has no appetite for his own kind. Fortunately, there are other plates of meat nearby to eat. Hearing him threaten the others, Yi Hwan snapped awake, grabbed Jo Manun's head firmly, and made him eat his knee. It was a painful blow that should have crushed the corporal's brain. The bastard was thrilled that the fight wasn't over. He's having too much fun with his new superhuman strength and doesn't want it to stop. If it were possible, they'd love to beat each other until there was nothing left. Yi Hwan put the chatter aside and focused on throwing punches. Those two have been fighting for so long that Dr. Kim finished treating the rookie's wound. He's all bandaged up now. Luckily, the bullet didn't hit any vital organs. It was a clean entry and exit wound. They were lucky to have such a complete first aid kit. Without the proper tools, treating the rookie would have been much harder. Dr. Kim noticed that the kit was prepared by a professional. In times like these, you have to thank the best girl, even if her intentions aren't clear. The documents got the gang into trouble. They just have to hope they don't have to use the premium first aid kit on Yuan 1 when this is all over. Meanwhile, Kim Guido continues to struggle with his incompetence while his friend dances with death. Regaining his resolve to act and help, he moved forward again. only to be stopped by Miss Sujin. But this time, they made it to the warehouse entrance. In the middle of arguing about whether to help, Kim Guido started hearing a strange sound. It sounded like music coming from the other building where they were holed up. Guido followed the sound, thinking it might be a ringtone. As he moved forward, the music grew louder. It was coming from a phone on a sofa, where the Hell soldiers used to gather. One look was all it took for Guido to recognize Yuan's phone. As he tried to pick it up, the ringing stopped, and the call was disconnected. Seeing who had called on the screen, his eyes nearly popped out of his head. While the journalist was panicking over a phone call, the corporal had his enemy in a death grip. Somehow, he lost even more clothes during the fight. On the verge of eliminating the only life that could rival him, Ying Yun asserted his superiority. It seemed he had already evolved beyond his predecessor. Anyway, he's starting to get bored, so he might as well finish the job. He even promised to make it painless as a gesture of gratitude to his family. Before he could pierce Yuan's skull, Kim Guido interrupted and called out to his friend. He ran back to the burning warehouse to exclaim that Yuan's sister, Lich, is still alive. Upon hearing that, Yuan experienced what seemed to be a second awakening, because he's the protagonist and has to be strong, no matter how bad his decisions are.